Educating, informing, serving. Fact TV, keeping government honest.
Welcome to the Rockingham Board of Health special meeting. This is a meeting of the Select Board. It's Wednesday. I'm sorry. What day is it? Tuesday, the 5th of January, 5:33 or so. We're meeting in the Town Hall Lower Theater, and there's a Zoom link for those accessing the meeting that way. Need to call the meeting to order. So this is a meeting of the Select Board. We're sitting as the Board of Health in the matter of 1 Center Street, Bellows Falls, Vermont, owned by Lindsay Van Schoik, Courtney Van Schoik. I'll say again, during any testimony today, that the witness please first identify yourself. Anyone who speaks tonight, please identify yourself. Speak clearly and answer with a yes or no. Please do not nod your head, yes or no. All verbal answers tonight. At this time, I believe we'll hear from the health officer.
I have a couple motions I'd like to hear heard, please.
I'm sorry?
I have a motion to dismiss I'd like to have heard.
Who are you?
Lindsay Van Schoik.
You need a microphone, please?
Lindsay Van Schoik, 1 Center Street.
Is the button click?
On? Okay, it's on. Green light. It's on. Lindsay Van Schoik, 1 Center Street. I'm objecting and asking for a dismissal on this based on the grounds that the property is not in the condition as represented. It was not in that condition on October 6th when the illegal meeting was scheduled. It was held without proper service, with notification, and therefore it was an illegal hearing. The issue that we have with that is that this board has been biased by that hearing. It is impossible for this board to sit here and hold a hearing that is unbiased. You are tainted. You have heard testimony that has had no rebuttal. You have allowed, without due diligence, people to testify with hearsay, theory, and opinion, no facts. Based on that, I ask for a dismissal on the fact that there is no way that this body here can hold a hearing that is fair. What is the solution? I don't know.
Okay, we had that hearing and you weren't present.
That
sir.
hearing was illegal.
So I'm not asking for you to speak again. I gave you a chance to speak. You'll speak when you're called on, okay?
You're referencing an illegal hearing. I object to what you said. I'm objecting.
We had a meeting, so we're going to address your motion. Sir,
Sir, can we clarify, are we here to hear an appeal?
Can I also state that this is an illegal meeting and service was not done properly for this
Please.
either?
point of order. We have point of order here.
Yeah, you speak and I don't.
I've asked him to speak. I let you speak. We're just getting going here, sir. I don't know you from anything.
You will before
You're-
the night's over.
Okay, great. Don't threaten me.
I'm not threatening you.
Okay.
I told you you will know me before the night's over.
We have a point of order here, and it's his turn to speak.
Point of order is, sir, are we discussing an appeal here? And I'd like an opinion from the attorney that's present, Mr. Stern. Are we listening to an appeal, or are we listening to a health order to be issued? We need to get that clear.
This is not an appeal. This is an original hearing on the health officer is seeking the issuance of a health order.
Thank you.
So are we ready to proceed with the hearing? Do we need to address the motion to deny the hearing? Do we need to address that? Or can we move forward with the hearing? Mr. Stern?
Yes, it's, the board can address it. It's up to the board what action they want to take on that. But it's, if he's asking that this be dismissed without a hearing, then it's up to the board what they want to decide on that. And then based on their decision, either go forward with the hearing or don't.
What is the board's pleasure? Does the board wish to have a hearing where we hear from both sides, testimony from both sides, so we can make a decision on this matter? Is that the board's wishes?
Mr. Chairman, I would say that we need to hear both sides. The original health order that was held back a while ago, as Mr. Van Scoik said, was not properly done. And this is the renewal of a health order, which would now serve as the original health order going forward. And I assume he is here with his right to appeal. And so we need to proceed with a hearing and evidence presented, and then we can go into a deliberative session to decide what we want to do. And that way, that the decision is done in writing. So when we come out of deliberative session, we do not have to make any announcements.
Is that the board's pleasure?
Yep.
Susan? Stefan?
Yes, sounds good.
Yeah, sounds good. I take it the deliberative session would be into an executive?
It's not executive, it's a deliberative. We move to another room, and
Okay,
it's
yep.
similar to an executive, but you don't
Yep.
have to quote statute
Right.
going
I
on.
understand. It's just been a while since we've done one.
I can leave for your light and come back.
Okay, so we're ready to move to the hearing. And as a complainant, the health officer will first present his case through live testimony, sworn affidavits, photographs, and such other evidence as the board deems relevant.
My name is Charles Wise. I'm the town health officer. I'd also like to recognize Sean McGinnis, who is here in the capacity of deputy health officer. The following testimony, can everyone hear me clearly? Actually, I'm going to take this mask off so I can be heard a little bit more clearly. So the testimony from Sean McGinnis and I are the following. The building located at 1 Center Street is a single-family home owned by Lindsay Van Schweik and Courtney Van Schweik. The home is uninhabitable, lacking access to water and wastewater services. The property has been in various states of neglect for several years. Town health officers have been working with the property owners since April 2019. The property owners have made several attempts to clear the property, but that has never resulted in full compliance. Town health officers have determined this property remains a public health hazard and describes its condition as continuing to deteriorate. Every month results in additional trash and debris being deposited on the property. Every month, additional damages are observed with the building's detached garage and general property. Every month, materials may arrive and depart, but overall, the property remains a public health hazard. The property has declined to the extent it harbors a rodent population. Rodents have been observed by neighboring residents and independently confirmed by town health officers. Rodents do not restrict their activities to 1 Center Street, but have actively infested neighboring properties. Rodent dispersal is most acute when the property owners are active on the property. Town health officer myself, I have actually presented notarized affidavits from the neighbors who have personally observed the rodents, and I myself have observed rodent activity at 1 Center Street. This concludes our testimony.
Do you have any witnesses, photographs?
Do I get to cross-examine him?
We're gonna, do you have any evidence you want to submit at this time?
We have in your packet what are titled Exhibit 1, Exhibit 2, which are the photos that are actually presented here in poster form. Those are pictures from September 2020 and December 8th, 2020. And then we have Exhibit 3, which was the affidavits concerning the rodent infestations of neighboring properties.
You may object to the introduction of evidence, sir, on the basis of relevance which the board will decide.
I object to the introduction of the evidence that is on the board here, if I may.
If you could just please speak into a microphone, sir, so that everyone at home can hear. We have to speak into a microphone.
This picture here was illegally taken, as was this picture. That picture. This picture could be taken from the street, and we used a drone for this picture, obviously. None of those pictures, with the exception of the drone picture and this street, this one here from the sidewalk, are legal pictures and can be entered. They was not given permission to trespass on the property. If we come over here, I see a drone picture. I can't complain about your drone picture. These pictures here, except for this picture right here, this one here, are all illegally represented as being legally taken on my property. Whoever took those pictures was trespassing. The property is posted. It is well posted. And Chuck Wise has been advised not to set foot on that property.
Okay, so hold on. So let's go to our latest ones here. And which ones are illegal, sir? 2 and 3?
This one,
Number 3?
this one,
Number 2?
that's taken from the fence. That's okay. The drone, when I,
So which ones, for the record?
this one,
Number 2?
this one,
Number 3?
and
It looks like it's on the other side of your fence.
But this one can't be.
there's no way that can be taken without being in front.
Number 2 and 3. So we can use 1, 4, and 5 for our evidence. And the board will decide the defendant's objection.
The other thing I have to say to you.
Hold on, please. We have to speak into a microphone. We have to speak one at a time.
These pictures are not.
Let me finish. We have to speak into the microphone. We have to speak one at a time. We have a court reporter catching every single word. Thank you.
None of these pictures are representative of this property at this time. None of them.
Okay. But
Some
your
of them are not.
objection-
Some of them are not even representative.
Hold on, sir. Your objection to the evidence, that's where we're at.
Okay.
You can object to the introduction of evidence on the basis of relevance. Okay, so you'd like to exclude
I'd like to exclude them all. The fact that they're
2
not.
and 3 because you say they were taken illegally.
Correct.
Okay.
I'd like to exclude them all because
where-
they do not represent the property as it stands today.
That's not where we're at, though. This is the evidence being submitted. This is what we have to work with. This is your chance to object
And
to
I'm
the
objecting.
introduction to numbers 2 and 3 you're objecting to.
I'm objecting to 2 and 3
So we're all clear. Okay,
because they were taken illegally.
ma'am,
But
one
isn't
at
it
a time.
relevant? Is it not relevant that that does not match the property today?
That's a separate discussion. We're trying to introduce some evidence.
Well, why isn't that introducing evidence? Help me out, understand here. If it's not relevant to the property today.
Sir,
and
listen,
the hearing-
I'm one member. I have 5-member board. We're gathering the evidence. You're going to get a chance to have your say. I'm asking you right now if you'd like to object to the evidence.
Yes.
You said you questioned photo 2 and 3
Correct.
because
And
of the
now I'm telling you, I question them all.
Okay. Discussion, does anyone feel those photos aren't relevant to be introduced as evidence on the basis of photos 2 and 3 were taken illegally? Yes, sir.
Can I go take a look at those?
Yes, sir.
Can I please ask that if someone's going to speak, they please say their name before they
That's,
speak?
yes, ma'am, sorry. That's
Thank
Peter Gulick. He's the
Okay.
vice chairman.
Thank you.
I think these are.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Now, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
We'll try to reel it in here.
Okay.
Susan, can you see the pictures at all? You've seen them before, the December 8th photos.
I think those are the ones that Chuck shared earlier. Then I have seen them. If he's,
Stefan, do you have any comments on the 1, 2, 3 photos not in question to be submitted as evidence?
Well, the question is, I don't know if it's legal to not onto the property to take those up there. What's our attorney turn?
Hold on a moment. Okay, so
I need your mic.
Okay, my question is, the photos that he's highlighting is stated illegally taken. Is that within our right to take those photos on his property? And that is the question to the attorney.
Okay, so a couple things. It's not clear from the testimony that is so far before the board exactly when and how these photos were taken. I understand that Mr. Van Schoik believes that based on the photos, they must have been taken from on site on his property. If the board wants to know more about exactly how they were taken before making a decision as to whether to admit them, then certainly it's within the board's right to question Mr. Wise. And I think that there are two issues that they can question him regarding. One is when and where he took them, and was he on the property at the time? And two is if he was on the property, did he either have permission at that point, or were there no trespassing signs posted or not? And was he, or had he been told by the owners at that point not to be on the property? So it doesn't seem like enough information has been given to the board to make this decision. And certainly it's within the board's right to ask some follow-up questions of both parties once Mr. Van Schoik testifies, if he decides to. But certainly it's within the board's right to ask some follow-up questions of Mr. Wise regarding when and how these photos were taken, and to use that information to inform its decision about whether the photos should come in or not. The other thing that I want to say now, before I forget, it wasn't clear to me from the earlier discussion whether Mr. Van Schoik's motion to dismiss in advance of the hearing had been granted or denied. It appears that because the board is taking evidence that it was denied, but I think that the board needs to clarify that it is whether it is in fact denying or granting that motion to dismiss before we go forward. And that's something that should be stated clearly on the record.
Okay, for the record, the board was asked if we wanted to accept that motion, and we chose to move forward with the hearing, which would mean we denied the motion to dismiss. Stefan, does that answer your question?
For the moment, yeah.
Peter Gullett?
Peter Golick, Mr. Wise, could you confirm that these pictures were taken, when they were taken, how they were taken, and did you have permission to be on the property to take them? Number one looks like it's a overhead drone view. The rest of them look like they're taken from a ground perspective.
Thank you, Mr. Golick. In all instances, the photos were taken at the same time with Sean McGinnis and myself. So the testimony, and you can add details, at no time did we encroach upon private property. We did use a ladder for the non-drone photography. That ladder was positioned in a couple of places. By permission from the Tombergs, the ladder was used on the north side. On the east, or excuse me, the west side, the sidewalk. On the south side, the sidewalk. On the east side, the abutting property. At no time did we encroach upon the property. We stayed outside of that area. There is a issue that's broader about, at one point, we used to have permission to access the property. Once we started the finding process, that our relationship changed with the property owners, but we have never gone on this property after we were told to not trespass any further. So to your direct question, Mr. Golick, did I answer that all these photos were taken within the public rights of way or at the very least outside of the Van Schweik's property?
We are only talking about this set of
Hold on,
pictures
sir.
and not those.
Hold on. We have to do this orderly.
I'm sorry.
And here's how it's gonna work. I've asked you if you wanted to object. You've objected. We're hearing the rebuttal. You're gonna get a chance.
I'm only asking, sir, I'm only asking.
You're gonna have
are
a
we talking
chance-
about these pictures or all of them?
Hold on a minute. He's talking about the first five. That's what the question
That's
was.
what I want to clarify.
You're gonna have a chance to cross-examine everything. We're trying to get it in here to submit the evidence. You'll have an opportunity once he's done. Okay? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it looks like number one, there's an overhead that doesn't really show a lot except a pile of something and behind there, but you can't really tell because of the distance. But the 2, 3, 4, 5, or 2, 3, 4, and 5, yes, look like they're representative of something on that property.
Mr. Golick, for the
Is that-
purpose of testimony, I would like Sean McGinnis to also respond to that question if you'd will.
That's
You're
fine.
What did you say? They look like they're
They're,
representative?
they're representing something on that property and, you know, I would assume it's, you know, there's tubs there,
Yeah.
I mean, there's, you know, there's stuff there, so it looks like it's representative of the property at that time. And I will hear what Mr.
I mean,
McGinnis has to say.
we're just trying to get photos or 3 submitted in the early stages of this hearing. And if the defense has photos of his own, what they look like today, we'll also see those, you know?
You will.
We're just trying to get through the very first step here.
And I want to do it properly.
Great.
And,
Let's finish it up and we'll move on and you'll have your chance to present your photos, your evidence.
but I don't want these submitted. They're not currently the property.
Okay,
They
so
were in
that,
the property
that,
on October
that
2nd.
would be where you submit your current photos. The questions we're asking are where they were taken from and are we going to submit
Ask
them?
when they were taken. I want to see a timestamp on
Okay,
it.
we're okay with the evidence being presented. We're discussing it. You'll get a chance, okay? Has to work like this.
Sean was going to speak.
Sean McGinnis, Fire Chief Bells Falls. What was are we addressing where the pictures were taken from?
Yeah, number one specifically. The top one.
This one here?
In the air, right above Old Terrace.
It was taken from the air by Old Terrace on the Old Terrace side. Yeah, all the pictures were taken, both Chuck and I were there at the same time. All were taken either from the air or from the Tom Burke's property on the Tom Burke side of the fence using a step ladder.
Whose drone was used?
I mean, I agree with this statement. Please don't speak to them unless I ask you to. In fact, at this time, if you'd like, you could sit back down.
Because they were definitely trespassing. I was there when he took it.
Okay, so the latest, what we've heard is that they were all taken from not on the property. I believe that. I believe that. I can tell from those photos. Okay? Do we want to submit them for evidence? Board will decide.
Can you ask the date they were taken, please?
The date was, we were presented with the date. We stated that.
December 8th of 2020 is when these pictures are from?
What day did you take the photos?
The date is on December, the specific date, that would have been at 3 p.m., December 8th, 2020. And the September ones, we didn't actually timestamp it. We weren't thinking in terms of precision.
Whoever is speaking, we can't hear you.
Sorry, I'm going to restate. The question is, when exactly were the photos taken? The exhibit 1 is September 2020. We don't have precise dates on the September. December 8th, 2020 at 3 p.m. the photos were taken.
The photos of December 8th, 2020, those 5 photos, which the testimony has been given, were not taken from on this property, are in discussion for submission for testimony. Does anyone object to submitting those 5 photos for testimony?
So this is Josh Stern. Just to clarify, it appears that unless Mr. Wise's additional testimony, it appears that his testimony is concluded and he's seeking to introduce these exhibits. But it doesn't appear that Mr. Van Schoik has had a chance to cross-examine him or to cross-examine him regarding the photos. It may be helpful to allow Mr. Van Schoik to ask questions of Mr. Wise regarding the photos.
Okay.
And when
I thought
prior to
we're
the decision.
I thought we're just accepting these photos. I thought there'd also be witnesses and other testimony.
Understood, but given if Mr. Wise's case is concluded,
I don't think it is. I don't think it is. We're trying to submit 5 photos for evidence, and then I believe there'll be witnesses.
understood, but if other than okay, so if that's the case, it may still be helpful to allow Mr. Van Schoik to ask some questions specifically just regarding the photos. And if he has some objections and if he has some questions that can help clarify his objections, that would allow the board to decide whether to admit the photos using the information that they get from any questions that Mr. Van Schoik asks. I think it may make sense just to allow.
Okay.
it to
Yeah,
develop.
I understood that. I thought that was at the conclusion of the health officer's testimony. I don't think we're at the conclusion.
Right. Well, if the court is deciding now whether to admit these exhibits, I think that Mr. Van Schoik does have a right to ask some questions about
Okay.
the exhibits.
Any questions from the board? Any other questions from the board about the 5 photos being submitted? No more questions from the board. One more.
Just one more point of order, Mr. Stern. If the board votes to accept these and then goes into deliberative session, can they be rejected for a specific region in the decision in deliberative session if the board so feels they're not pertinent?
The board should make the decision as to whether or not to admit the exhibits into evidence during the hearing and before it goes into deliberative session. So one way or another, it needs to make that decision based on the evidence that's presented to it. What I would suggest is that Mr. Van Schoik be given an opportunity to ask any questions that he has specifically just about these exhibits, so he can develop any testimony that he thinks is relevant to the question of whether they should be admitted. And then the board can decide whether to admit them. Once they're admitted, that's the evidence. The evidence that the board has when it goes into deliberative session, that's the evidence that it should consider. Now, what it chooses to do with the evidence is another matter, but the decision as to whether to actually admit these exhibits into evidence should be made prior to the conclusion of the hearing.
Thank you.
You have questions on the photos, sir? Yes, I do. You need to speak into your microphone. Every single word.
Yes, I do. Lindsay Van Schoik, 1 Center Street. This picture right here is said that it was taken December 8th. It doesn't really help my case any at all, but that's just not true because that black vehicle was not even on the property or even in our possession on December 8th.
Do you have
I didn't own the
evidence
vehicle.
to support that claim?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Do I have it with me? No. I asked for this information on the 24th.
Okay.
And no one sent it to me.
Go.
Which my other objection is that none of these were presented to me in any way so that I could defend myself against them. Not a one of them. I asked for discovery. No one gave me discovery. No one. I asked what new evidence I would be facing here this evening.
Back to these photos. Continue.
They are the photos. I'm talking about the photos. They're
I
part of the
understand.
discovery.
I'm talking about your objection to these photos.
This vehicle right here was moved on December 5th.
Okay.
So he says the pictures were taken December 8th. This one was December 5th. I can prove that vehicle wasn't even in, it didn't
Okay.
come here till the 12th.
Okay.
We purchased it on the 10th.
Understood.
Okay, so that's wrong right there. This stuff here, this bathtub here, That has not been on the lawn for at least a month and a half, which would be 6 weeks. There is numerous things here that do not exist today, did not exist on October 6th when the original hearing was held, because I moved them all for that hearing. So this
Okay.
December 8th business is totally out of line. Mr. Wise has continually taken pictures to increase his chances against us, the threat of us, when it doesn't exist. We have continually complied.
Can you please speak into the mic?
He continually says that we haven't done anything. He continually says it's worse than it was, but I have pictures to show that it isn't. I
Okay.
have pictures to show that it's much better. And these are nothing but deflammatory to the condition of the property
Okay,
right now.
So what you're saying is that,
There is not one picture here
The
that is
December-
representative of the
Okay.
property today.
so that's your,
This boat right here,
your
another
objection
example.
is that they're
This
not.
boat was moved 6 weeks ago.
Okay, sir. So your objection is that there's no way they could be
There's no
taken on
relevance to this court case.
December 8th.
There's no relevance to this hearing.
Okay.
And they are not December 8th.
For the purpose of this hearing, I'm in favor of seeing these photos, because I know we're going to see other photos that may show a different side. I mean, all we're trying to do is get some photos to move on to.
And I'm trying to
More
prevent,
testimony.
I would love to be able to not appeal this hearing.
No, I understand.
That's what my goal
You're
is.
going to get your
And
chance
everything
to.
you do like
Sir,
this gives me the opportunity for an appeal.
I understand that, but you're going to have your time to present all of your evidence, which will have impact on our decision. We haven't got there yet. Do we have other testimony? Chuck, do we have witnesses prepared to speak? Anything else to be presented on your behalf for this case?
In attendance via Zoom, I can see Eliza Sherrod. I can see,
Louder, please,
um,
if you can.
I can see Lou Tomberg. I guess, Mr. Chairman, I would ask that they be recognized.
Does any witnesses like to give a statement to be presented toward this case at this time?
Why would they be presenting against these pictures? We're talking about these pictures.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Do we need to vote on these pictures right now, Mr. Stern, or we've heard Chuck's proposal and his defense to why he doesn't want them? Do we need to make a decision? Can we accept the photos?
So it sounds like you've heard from both parties, and
Just
Mr. Van Schoik has made some objections. It didn't appear that he had additional questions for Mr. Wise regarding the photos. So certainly the board can make that decision now, or it can defer the decision until further evidence is presented, as long as it makes it before the conclusion of the hearing. But yes, the board at this point is within its right to decide based on the testimony that it's heard, whether or not to allow these photos into evidence.
what's the pleasure here? I prefer, like I've already said once, to have them submitted. We're going to have a lot more photos and evidence from the defense that will also be submitted. When it comes to deliberation, we will be able to discuss all of this evidence, hearing the testimony of the claims of the dates and the times and the black car and the red car. Okay? Let's work. Does everyone agree that they'd like to have those 5 photos as evidence?
Mr. Chair, could I just add one more piece of information for the
Yeah.
boards,
Yes.
as well as for the Ben Schoiks? I do have an email that was sent to Lindsay on the 16th that did have the revised meeting as well as all 3 exhibits attached as PDFs. That was sent to him at 9:38 on the 16th of
December
December.
with those photos
With
and all the
3
evidence.
set, yes.
Okay.
Yes, so, and I'd asked multiple times after that if there was any additional information. We did receive some
He
information.
responded to that.
He did respond to that,
Okay.
yes.
December
So,
16th.
That was December 16th. Just wanted to clarify that for the board's information.
Very, very helpful. Thank you.
Clarify that I re-asked for that to be resubmitted on the 24th as I had not received it
But sir, on the 16th, it was sent to you.
and I did not receive it, so I asked for it again on the 24th. I think I sent
But
you a
I
text.
do believe on the record about 5 minutes ago, you stated you were never given the right to receive this, any
I
of
didn't
this.
say I was never given the right. I said I never received it.
And why is that?
I have no idea. It did not wind. I had trouble receiving things from him. He was winding up in my junk mail.
But you responded to that, so you must have seen it.
Responded to what?
The December 16th email.
I responded to it because there was nothing to it. It was just a meeting agenda. That's all that
So
was
which,
there.
which was it? They were going in the junk mail?
No,
or-
all that was there was the agenda. There were no pictures attached. There was no evidence attached. So therefore, I read the email. It said that was attached. I wasn't there. I re-asked for that. And I never received anything from that.
And that was on the 24th?
That was on the 24th.
And do you have that
Yeah,
email?
I have it on my phone.
You have all that?
Yes, I have it.
Printed emails and everything?
I have it on my
For your
phone. It's a
testimony?
message I sent him on my phone.
Very good, thank you. So back to the pictures. We all agree we'd like them for very preliminary evidence here. Now we're going to move on to hear from some testimony.
We took just these other pictures?
We're just taking these 5, December 8th. Those are older. I don't know as we need to discuss them.
No, they were all taken illegally. I think we should discuss them.
Okay, it's not being entered into evidence.
What's it doing here?
So we have the Tomberg is unmuted. Would you like to speak at this time?
Well, I haven't been a witness to anything other than you've seen it. We've all seen it. The town has seen it. It needs to be addressed. That's all. Protection for the town, protection for the neighbors, protection for everybody. I don't know what else to say. I think you all are thinking the same thing I'm thinking. Let's move.
And if I were to ask, the condition you would say today, as a neighbor, compared to these photos we're looking at on December 8th. I don't know if you can see them.
I cannot.
Okay. Anyone else, neighborhood resident would like to speak? Mr.
Yeah,
McPhee.
Mr. Chairman, Doug McPhee, 30 Center Street, Bellows Falls, not a direct neighbor, but when I reside in this community, I walk by that property every day. From day one or shortly after, from when this gentleman purchased the property, it has been in a state of, lack of a better word, and I don't know what, the disrepair and things all over the place, coming and going constantly. It may be at this point slightly better or better than it has been, but it's still, I am glad I live a number of houses away from it. This has been going on for a long, long time, and even I am concerned about it at 30 Center when he resides at 1 Center. Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is Josh Stern. Just to clarify something, so it's a public hearing, but it's not the same as a public meeting. This is a hearing where the parties can bring in testimony and witnesses, but unless the parties, either Mr. Wise, the health officer, or Mr. Van Schoik calls someone as a witness, this is really not a place for members of the community to just be volunteering information. The board should be basing its decision on testimony that is presented by one or the other party.
Okay.
So how about, if I may ask, Stefan Golick, clarification, because Mr. Van Schoik mentioned earlier some rules of discovery. How do they apply here? Josh?
Okay, so this is regarding the question of whether, in fact, these materials were given to Mr. Van Schoik on the 16th in advance of the hearing. the court can, well, the board will have to decide on its own the question of whether in fact they were sent and whether in fact they were received. It sounds like there's conflicting accounts on that. So that's a decision that the board will have to make. This is not a court, so the particular discovery rules that apply in courts don't necessarily apply here, but the board can certainly factor that into its decision as to whether to admit these photos into evidence. But again, that may come down to a factual question of were they in fact sent and were they in fact received? And that's something that the board will have to decide. So the short answer is, again, ultimately this decision is still up to the board.
Okay, but that's if we go with that principle, that's a two-way street between both parties, correct? The town and Van Schoyks?
Can you clarify that? Do you mean?
As far as providing or sharing information?
Well, again, the discovery rules as they exist in the court don't necessarily apply here. So it's not, there's not a specific rule as to whether or how far in advance of a hearing documents need to be submitted in order to be admitted into evidence. Again, the board can consider what opportunity the parties had to see the evidence in advance and rebut it. And it can consider that in determining whether to admit these exhibits into evidence and how much consideration to give to them. But there is no hard and fast rule the way that there would be in a court as to what materials need to be disclosed in advance, how far in advance, and so on.
That's fine. That suffices. I do have a question, Mr. Chairman, though.
Yes, sir.
Where did this come from? Okay, I've got a question for you, if I may,
Not
sir.
yet. We're not there yet. We're not on his evidence yet, his testimony yet. We haven't, we're
Can I
about to
ask
get
you
there.
any question?
1 second. So you have any more, you have no witnesses, you have any more evidence, Chuck, at this time?
Speak Eliza, can you do the rodents that you personally seen?
Can't hear you,
Chuck,
Chuck.
we can't hear you.
Try that again with the mic on. Eliza, can you speak to the rodents that you've personally observed crossing the road onto the property owned by SL Moore?
So he's asking for someone to speak, Mr. Stern,
Oh,
on
yep, I'm
rodents.
sorry.
Hold on a second, please.
Okay.
Do we need to swear in these witnesses that'll go on record?
Yes, all witnesses should be sworn in prior to giving testimony.
Is Eliza going to present testimony as a witness, Chuck?
As well as Lou Tomberg. Those will be my two neighbors.
So Eliza, I need to swear you in if you're ready.
I am.
You need to raise your right hand. You solemnly
Yep.
swear that the evidence you shall give relative to the cause now under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but truth under the pains and penalties of perjury.
I do.
Thank you.
So my name is Eliza Sherrod. I'm the property manager of a property at 24 Old Terrace across the corner from Center Street property. I rent 3 apartments there for SL Moore Realty. And we also have a wood shop out in the back, tool shop. We recently, in the last 7 or 8 months, I can't give exact dates, have had a rodent problem at the property. Rats specifically going into the apartments, burrowing into the ceilings. And we've had to do our own extermination, which is labor of my workers and cost of rat poison, et cetera, and also doing things prophylactically to keep them from coming in. It has created a big issue there for me, and I know for neighboring houses in the neighborhood, not to mention the eyesore that it has turned into. I agree that it looks like it has been cleaned up a bit as of late, but not enough where this hearing shouldn't be going on and something shouldn't be done. about the property, especially for the neighboring property owners that have had to deal with the rodent problem specifically in the neighborhood. Coming directly from the property, tenants have told me that the rats come over. I've witnessed them at night. I've sat in the driveway and witnessed them coming in. My son used to live in the apartment, had to deal with the issue. So that is my testimony.
What was the number, Old Terrace?
24 Old Terrace.
And could
The
you
big
just,
red barn.
yeah, I used to live there too. Could you just give me about a date about from when to when you've seen or witnessed these rats? Just roughly.
It was somewhere in the summertime. I remember talking to the neighbors about it out on the street when I would go by in my SL truck. It was somewhere in the summertime. People were hanging out. I'd say August, around that area, September.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions for Eliza? Yes, sir.
Could you tell me which you represent?
I can't hear.
24 Old Terrace. It's the big red barn across the street.
His mic is not on.
It's not working now.
Going right next to you.
Is it on now?
Yeah.
It's on now?
See the red light at the top? Just went out again. Something happened.
The battery's dying probably.
That's probably the weak batteries. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
1 Center Street. So I will agree with you that I have myself seen rats crossing the street from the field that is behind that red building. I would like to know, number one, I would like to object to most of your testimony with the exception of your own words because it's all hearsay. And there's no proof. It's somebody talking and now it's you talking secondhand. So I object to all that portion of your testimony. Those people aren't here. They're not speaking. As far as you seeing them cross the street at night, I have no problem with that. I have seen them at night myself. I would question you seeing them in the daytime, but you didn't say you saw them in the daytime, so I have no question to that. But I do object to everything other than your statement of seeing the whether you think the property's a mess or not is not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the rats and the health order. So I object to everything that is not related to that, and I object to everything that you said someone else said.
Okay. And was there one more, Chuck?
I need clarification from Mr. Tomberg. Lou, I had some general comments to you. I want you to speak very specifically to the rodents that you've seen coming from 1 Center Street, if you will.
I'll also need to swear you in, sir.
Okay, let me back up here, okay? I'm not the neighboring Tomberg. My son Matthew is, and I believe he is on the line.
Yeah, I'm here.
Ice Baker. All right.
Yeah.
Matt, would you like to give testimony to, and
Yes, sure.
sorry. I was,
Matt Tomberg, 7 Center Street.
hold on, please.
Yes, so let me ask for Matt Tomberg to speak. Sorry about that, Matt. I didn't recognize your call sign.
All right.
So actually, this is Josh Stern. Before we move ahead, another point of clarification. So after each witness testifies, the other party, so Mr. Wise, if a witness is testifying on his behalf, can examine the witness and ask questions. The court can also, or the board can also ask questions if it chooses to. But then the other party, so in this case, Mr. Van Schoik, has to get a chance to interview or to question that witness. So that's
We did that. We
process.
did that.
Okay.
That's exactly what we did, sir.
Okay.
Unless we didn't do it right. We heard testimony from Eliza. I asked her a question, and then Van Schoik responded to the testimony.
Okay.
I don't think he was looking for an answer. He just made a claim.
So if I'm understanding correctly, then he doesn't have additional questions for the witness, and if not, that's fine. I just want to make sure that we're following this procedure
Okay,
as we go along. So
great. Thank you very much. Did you
Yep.
have any questions for her or just a statement? Your objection.
My objection was all I had.
Thank you.
Point of order. Have you sworn Mr. Van Scoik and Chuck?
They
in?
don't,
I don't believe he did.
Chuck is a health officer. It says here, just the witnesses, all witnesses.
so
He's-
if
He's a health officer.
if he's offering testimony, and that's a good point. If I may have overlooked that at the beginning, any testimony that comes in, whether it's by a party or not, is testimony by a witness. So if he's testifying regarding his regarding what he saw at the property, he needs to be sworn in before he does that. So it may be in this case that we'll need to go back. We'll have to swear him in and then have him offer testimony again. And the only testimony that the board should consider is testimony that he has given under oath. So parties or not, every witness needs to be sworn in.
Chuck Wise,
Testimony.
back to the beginning and then take his testimony again.
Yes, if he was not sworn in prior to his testimony, then yes.
We weren't directed to do that, sir.
Can I say that what I said was true? And we move on?
No, not so much you, all of it. We're gonna start over.
Oh, I see.
Well,
That isn't what I was told to do here.
so the other witnesses, so
Be happy to do it.
yeah, the witnesses that were sworn in, that's fine. But Mr. Wise did offer testimony at the beginning, and if he did so without being sworn in, which it appears that he did, then he'll need to be sworn in, and he'll need to re-offer that testimony if the board is to consider it.
Understood. Mr. Wise,
Excuse me.
Yes,
I'd
sir.
like myself and Sean McGinnis to be given the oath.
you got it. Can I do them together or separately?
Separately.
Mr. Wise, you solemnly swear that the evidence you shall give relative to the cause now under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury.
I do.
You raise your right hand. Thank you. Chief McGinnis, Deputy Health Officer. You solemnly swear that the evidence you shall give relative to the cause now under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury.
I do.
Thank you.
And Scott, is he?
You want me to swear in Mr. Van Choik now or do we wait till later?
You can swear him in just prior to his testimony. That's fine.
And that's your daughter? Yes. Would you like me to swear? I'm going to swear her in as well. Okay, ready? Mr. Van Choik, please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear that the evidence you shall give relative to the cause now under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Thank you. And your daughter's first name? Courtney. Please raise your right hand. Thank you. Do you solemnly swear that the evidence you shall give relative to the cause now under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury? I do. Thank you. Now, we're going to take that testimony from Mr. Wise again. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
You're up, Chuck.
The building located at 1 Center Street is a single-family home owned by Lindsay Van Schoik and Courtney Van Schoik. The home is uninhabitable, lacking access to water and wastewater services. The property has been in various states of neglect for several years. Town health officers have been working with the property owners since April 2019. The property owners have made several attempts to clear the property, which has never resulted in full compliance. Town health officers have determined this property remains a public health hazard and describes its condition as continuing to deteriorate. Every month results in additional trash and debris being deposited on the property. Every month, additional damages are observed with the building's detached garage and property. Every month, materials may arrive and depart, but the property remains a public health hazard. The property has declined to the extent it harbors a rodent population. Rodents have been observed by neighboring residents and independently confirmed by the town health officers. Rodents do not restrict their activities to 1 Center Street, but have actively infested neighboring properties. Rodent dispersal is most acute when the property owners are active on the property. Town Health Officer Charles Wise presented the Board of Health with notarized affidavits from neighbors who have personally observed rodents.
Could you clarify,
Pumping out cold air.
turn the fan off? Could you please? Just a little switch.
Pumping cold air.
Turn the switch. There's a switch for the fan. Could you please clarify lacking access to water and wastewater?
They don't have water or wastewater service.
And why is that?
The service has been cut off.
For how long?
I actually don't know the precise amount of time. Maybe Mr. Van Schoik does.
Hold on, please. And then why was it cut off?
I understood it to be a lack of payment for those services.
And do we know what that number is?
We don't.
Okay, thank you. Did you catch that? He's printing some copies.
Whoever is speaking, we cannot hear you.
So
Thought the mic was
first of
still
all-
on.
First of all, this is kind of brand new. Chuck just presented the testimony.
Right.
Now it'll be our turn to have any questions for him. And then we'll have your turn.
Isn't it my turn first and then you question both of us?
At first,
What good does he, how
Chuck
can you, how-
presents his case through live testimony, sworn affidavits, photographs, such other evidence. Owners may object to the introduction of evidence on the basis of relevance, which the board will decide.
when do I get to question him as a witness?
When he's done presenting his testimony with affidavits, photographs.
Right,
such
and
other
then you
evidence.
question both of us when we're both done. And that's how you determine who's talking.
It's not, you haven't presented your case yet. We swore Chuck in, he stated his case again. We almost just started over.
He's a witness, so I get to cross-examine him
Right.
before we move on. And then you ask the questions about
Okay,
what
would
went
you,
on
you have a
between Chuck
question
and I.
for Chuck right
I have a
now?
lot of questions for Chuck.
Okay, and you want to wait till Scott gets back?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Wait, please.
What are we waiting for?
He wants to wait for Scott, the manager, to be
Scott.
present for his,
All right. I thought you said Chuck, sorry.
questions.
Well, actually, he can watch this, right?
Can we ask? He sure can.
He can see the whole thing.
It's all
so
recorded
let's
and,
move on.
and videotaped. And my question, Mr. Stern, are we able to ask the defense questions to my question to Chuck at the time about the water, wastewater? When do I just wait for that?
So the board can question once, when there's a witness, the board can question the witness. It can question him during his initial testimony or at the end of it. And then Mr. Van Schoik is correct, though, that before we move on to another witness, he does need to have the opportunity to cross-examine. But yes, if the board has questions for a witness, it's free to ask those questions. Does that answer your question, or am I misunderstanding it?
I was going to ask the owner about the wastewater question that Chuck couldn't answer, but I can
I'm
wait.
going to ask him a question that'll answer your question, sir.
He actually
Go.
testifies.
Go ahead. You're up.
Okay. Can I ask a question? Can we get rid of those pictures if they're not evidence? Can we take them out of the room? Please?
Those
They-
five are evidence, right?
Those right there.
Sure thing.
Thank you. What's attached to them just riles my soul. Chuck, first let's do the water first. On April, I'm not sure of the date, but in the beginning of the April, when you were at the property and you and I were discussing things, I told you that there was a little bit of a conflict of interest between your position, as I had been talking to Wendy Harrelson about resolving the water bill, and that it was outrageous, crazy, and we were being billed for water that was not even on at over $100 a month, which was far exceeded the fire and everything else. I will tell you that that water was shut off on January 17th of 2019, right after that ice storm, the real cold that we had. The meter in the basement burst. I got there and I called the water department and asked them to shut the water off. It was never turned back on after that point. Wendy Harrelson and I were working on it when she left. And I asked Mr. Wise specifically about addressing the water, and he said, we're going to take care of the other issues first. Do you remember that conversation, sir?
What date was that?
It would have been
this
right
happened?
around April, whenever you came to the house, that was April, I want to say, I could get the actual date,
Okay.
but it was in April.
I understood you to make claims about the validity and credibility of the water bills you were receiving. Yes.
Do
I
remember-
indicated that I was not there for that. I indicated I was there for the property,
Correct.
the
And
health
that
off
you
stuff.
would
So
address that at a later time.
it was tangential to my investigation whether or not the water wastewater bills were paid.
Then
Can I ask
why
a
are they
question?
being brought up now? If it's not involved in this, why is it being brought up?
It's relevant to testimony for.
It is. It's relative to my testimony. That house would be done and a whole lot more would be done had I had water
Can
on
I
it.
ask you a question?
Yes.
So prior to your discussion with Wendy, the water had been turned off for 16 months,
No.
January 2019 to April 2020.
No, I can do it. There was a crisis in the family. I left the house for 3 days. It was the coldest cold that we've had since I got back. The basement was flooded. There were pipes burst
I
and leaking
understand.
everywhere. I had the water shut off. At that point, I decided I was going to redo all the pipes in the basement. So I redid all the pipes in the basement so that the issue could not happen again. I contacted Wendy to get the water turned back on. The water was shut off in January. I contacted her to have the water turned back on I'm sorry, I thought I had that shut off. I contacted her in, I want to say May. Actually, it was in April of 2019. April of 2019. And we were discussing it. She said that she saw that there was a definite problem. And certainly I shouldn't be being billed like $1,200 a year when the water isn't even on. But it's just like, it's crazy. We had like $300 a month.
January 2019 to April 2019.
Right, before I discussed it with her.
So that was the time
frame that I redid
that
the
you were
pipes.
being billed.
Oh no, I've been being billed when the
No. For the water that wasn't on, you're saying?
I'm still being billed today for
I know,
it.
that's how it works, but I'm trying to.
No. It doesn't work that way. It works that you get billed for the fire.
Okay.
It doesn't work that you get billed for water you don't use.
The day it was turned off or broken was January 17th, 2019.
Correct.
Okay. And the meter and everything, there was no question about your concern of water usage on that day until
Yes,
something.
there was. Oh,
Okay.
yes, there was.
Okay. You have records of
Yes, I do.
your
Yes, I do.
appealing the water bill?
Yes.
Okay. So it's been off since January 17th, 2019.
We were working on resolving it. She said, how about if we just work this out where it was worked out before because this is the second time I had the problem. I was living in the house by myself and I was getting a water bill of $347 a month. There were no leaking pipes. There was nothing else.
Okay.
And the bill was coming in every month at that rate. I explained to her that I was the only person at the time. I made a deal with the woman who left, who was the clerk. She said, there's no way to resolve this. How about if I bill you the minimum? Are you willing to accept that?
Okay. I don't.
You asked how long this went back.
I don't need the whole story, sir. I just wanted that answer. And if you have any more questions for Chuck's,
well, you asked why it was off, and I'm explaining why it was off.
I just wanted the date. I heard your story. I understand.
Okay.
Just looking for the date and why it was off.
And Scott and I are working on it now to get it resolved.
Okay.
We're trying to get it resolved. So under
anything
penalty of perjury, Chuck, are you willing to testify that that date on those pictures is the correct date?
Yes.
You are. Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay. So now we're back to
Oh, yeah, I do have another question. I'm sorry.
I might be able to get Matt Tomberg's testimony. You have another question for
Yes,
Chuck
I do.
at this time?
Yes, I do. Chuck, what?
Regarding that
For
test-
Mr. Wise.
his
Yes,
opening?
regarding his testimony.
Okay.
Do you have pictures that show the deterioration of the building that you are speaking about? From when you say, I bought to purchase the property, and the deterioration that you're saying has taken place to date?
The
I'm not,
photos
I'm not
that,
asking about junk in the yard or anything else. I'm asking you about the deterioration that you say is there. I know it's not related to the rats. I know it's not related to health, but you did state it.
yes, they are shown on the photos.
On which specific photos?
December 8th. So we'll just look at the drone image. You can see the porch is in a state of disrepair. There used to be a awning above the door on the east side of the building that was ripped off. That's just Tyvek. And now the back of the building, you have birds and other animals coming in and out.
You had pictures that would represent.
You have to speak in the microphone.
The photos show the deterioration of the buildings. Yes.
I asked if you had, I realized that the building's deteriorated from some point, but are you aware that I bought the building in that condition? That's exactly the condition the building was bought in. And in fact, I have made many major repairs to the outside of that building. It was much worse, much worse. So your testimony is inaccurate, and you do not have pictures that show that that property has deteriorated since I purchased it.
I don't believe the photos are an attempt to chronicle what you have done or not done on this property. The photos are to show the deteriorated state of the building.
That does not take away from the fact that you said that it has deteriorated while in my possession.
It continues to deteriorate.
It has
yes.
not and does not. Can you please show me where?
We were talking about those photos.
If you're going to make a statement, you have to back it up with something.
You're going to allow me to speak.
Please.
Thank you. The drone image shows the building in disrepair. I pointed out those sections that are clearly evident. The other pictures, in terms of building deterioration, you can see where the porch has been removed and it's fallen apart. It has not been kept up. Not photoed is your foundation is kicking out on the north side of the building. And Courtney and I did have a tour inside the building. I did not use those photos as evidence, but Courtney at that time did point out a number of areas of neglect that basically were there when you acquired the property. So to answer your question, yes, you did purchase that property when it was fairly deteriorated. Does that answer your question?
No, it does not. I asked you if you made the comment that the porch is deteriorated. It has not. You made the comment about the tieback. That tieback was not even there. The wood was not replaced that I replaced behind there that was rotten. There was never ever a porch on that property since I have owned it. Never. It has only been repaired by taking down the pieces of it that were left sticking out from the former tenant.
You have made, you issued a question. I gave you an answer.
Yeah.
And the answer is no. No matter how you state it, the answer is no. You do not have any pictures that represent that house deteriorating from the time that I purchased it to today.
Okay. Happy?
I'm happy.
Ready to move on here? Ready for the testimony from Matt Tomberg, and I would need to swear you in, Matt, if you're still there.
Yes, sir.
If you would raise your right hand. You solemnly swear that the evidence you shall give relative to the cause now under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Thank you very much. Please state your name for the record.
Matt Tomberg, 1 Center Street, or I mean 7 Center Street, excuse me.
And what would you like to say today?
Where do you want me to start? I think
I don't know. Can he object or does he have to wait, Mr. Stern? Oh, you pushed the wrong button. You've been unmuted. Sorry.
He can object if there's, he can object before the testimony comes in. If he has a specific question he objects to, for example, he can object to the question. So he can object throughout, and then it's up to
No, to Matt Tomberg's testimony right now. is the question.
So he's objecting to any testimony whatsoever. Is that correct?
I don't know. He's asking if he can object to portions of the testimony that we haven't begun to hear.
He can object to a question, but until there's a question or a statement, there's not much to object to.
Can I ask a question? Or do I have to wait until he's finished to cross-examine him?
If he is a witness, so you have to wait to cross-examine witnesses for the health officer.
What if he says something that is not related to the case? Can I object to it at that point?
Yes, and then
Thank
it's up to the board to decide whether to.
That was my question. Thank you.
Please continue, Matt.
Okay. So let's see. We moved here in about December of 2017, and Mr. Van Hoyt had acquired the property. I think within a year and a half of that. I'm not sure when exactly he acquired the property, but so, and I agree the property was in disrepair when he purchased it, and the only reason that I'm really here is because we share a property line, and because this is a double lot on 7 Center Street, our property line extends to the middle of his driveway, which is not the issue. The issue was maintaining the fence.
Hold on, Tom. The owner is objecting, saying it does not.
I'm objecting to the property line.
I understood your objection. The owner is saying the property line does not. Do we have evidence of boundary lines?
I believe we're in the process of DiBernardo surveying the property, but
okay. And I have the title company is in the process of surveying it.
Okay, so you're both working on proof?
Right.
Confirmed. Thank you. Is it okay for him to continue?
Yes.
So I was present the day that my grandfather, when he was still alive, informed the neighbor that our property line existed in the middle of the driveway, and all we asked was space to be able to maintain our fence. As time progressed, the debris and the vehicles started to build up against the fence, which, you know, what someone does on their own property is their own business until it has a negative effect on someone else. And outside of maintaining the vegetation on the fence, there wasn't an issue until this summer when it became increasingly evident that every time someone became present at 1 Center Street and caused a disturbance, that rodents would proliferate the area. And that was evident on the night of September 17th, which was when I called my father, the property owner, and he then called Chuck Weiss, who came up that night to confront Mr. Lindsay. And I think things have kind of digressed since then. I do have photos of the property, but they are not an accurate representation of the condition the property is in now. They have made efforts, great efforts, to clean up the property. And if it remained in the condition that it is currently in, and the rodents were not a problem, we wouldn't be in this circumstance. But this has been allowed to continue year in and year out. So we have to deal with it somehow.
What year was that September date, Matt?
This year,
2020? 2020?
2017, 2020.
Okay. 17th.
Yeah, and I have photos around that time that were taken on our property.
Yep. Anything further?
I'd really just like to see this resolved. I know everyone's got lots of other things to do than argue about what condition your property is in or isn't right now, or where and when photos were taken. But we just got to figure out some common ground here, because we don't need to be spending any more time, any of us, on this, I feel like. So, ready for any questions?
So you stated that I moved into the property a year and a half after you?
No, you moved in before me.
Yes,
My
a
father was
year
still
and a half
alive.
before you.
Yeah, and you
You also
moved in,
stated
and
that you and your
President,
grandfather and I and you
told
had a
where the
conversation.
boundary line was. So
You're the only person in your family that I had a discussion with on the property line was your father, who showed me a piece of copper in the ground in the middle of the driveway, which turned out to be a penny. So I then had my friend who was a surveyor come out and show me the actual copper post that is in the ground.
do you have documentation of that?
You'll be getting that shortly, along with the court case for adverse possession. You also stated that I had this conversation with your grandfather and you. That has never taken place.
Well,
Not with
no,
me.
You had the conversation with my grandfather. Unfortunately, he's not here to testify.
No, you said that I was there to talk. I've only spoken to your grandfather when he was alone, when I used to trim the hedge for him, and I used to do some yard work for him when I saw him out there and nobody helping him. Those are the only times I ever had any words, conversations, or contact with your grandfather.
That's an
I have
interesting
spoken to your
story.
father. You also testify that you see rats. Do you have a mini farm on your property?
No.
You do not. You do not have a huge garden?
Do rats eat garlic?
I said you do not have a huge garden on your property.
What would you define as huge?
That's pretty big. I mean, a 12 by 12 is big to me, and it's much bigger than that.
What's your question, sir?
My question is, he's saying he has rats in his yards. He's a farmer. He works on a farm. Are you aware that rats are attracted to gardens? They are attracted to beehives and chickens.
I'm aware that rats are allowed to persist where they're allowed to do so. The chickens came in, was it end of November? So it was much after the date.
Well, the chickens aren't the biggest issue. The chickens is your garden, and if you just Googled it,
garden?
you would see that gardens attract rats, as do beehives. They love to eat the dead bees that wind up in the bottom of the hive and on the ground. Doesn't take a genius to Google it. You will see that for yourself. In addition, are you aware that the rats live in the streets next to the pipes, which have been continually dug up in our neighborhood? I'm asking you, are you also aware? Well, answer that question first.
I might be.
That's not really an answer.
You're not really asking me anything relevant to what we're talking about.
I'm asking you if you are aware what attracts rats.
I don't need a biology lesson on rats.
As far as his testimony.
Yes, he said that he saw rats running around the yard.
Correct.
And
But
I'm
now
asking him
you're
if he, are you, all right, let me do this. Are you a farm? Do you have a garden on your property?
We're not talking about his property.
We are. He spoke that he was on. Before the night's over, you're going to see where these rats are coming from.
Okay, sir. I mean, I think everybody in this room just wants the right solution here.
So do I.
I'm not a judge. I
So
never
do I.
signed up to sit on this panel of discussion and testimony.
And I'm allowed to
swearing
defend
people in.
myself when I'm
I
assaulted.
understand that. We're all neighborly. We've been here for a long, long, long time. Everyone in this room wants the same outcome. However we get there
You're getting the outcome and we're still sitting here.
But here we are talking,
I mean,
and somewhat off subject, in my opinion, about chickens. We don't have a law against chickens.
Excuse me.
Right.
The point I was trying to make is he said
the
he
size
had
of
rats
his
running his
garden?
yard.
I have a large garden.
Well, excuse me.
Well, there's-
Can I finish, please? The point I'm trying to make here is he said he has rats in his yards.
We
He
heard
has
that.
a garden.
The
he
neighbor
has
across
bees,
the street had
and he
rats.
has them. Yeah, and they left their trash
Your
out
house
and
is
said-
in
and said it's
between
me.
them.
And I want to ask you a question. Do you know that rats don't go where there's no
I
food?
don't know a lot of knowledge about rats. I hate
Well,
them.
you should. This is a big issue. You should have done it before you ever came here.
Yeah, I've done my
It's called
research.
due diligence.
I've done my research.
Can we ask some questions on his statement that he provided as well?
Is that being
I don't
used?
have a
is it
statement
being
from
used?
him.
Is this statement being used as evidence?
Hasn't been submitted here in this hearing.
Exhibit number 3, what Courtney's speaking to is exhibit number 3, which has been turned into the Board of Health.
So that is being used tonight.
The
as evidence.
affidavits concerning rodent infestations, yes.
We can address it. Yes.
Do you have questions? Just say your name one time. I don't know if the court
Courtney
reporter
Van Schweik.
got you there.
In reference to, so you said your dog ingested poison a year ago, correct? In your father did in the hearing. He said that you October 6th hearing. Your dad said that your dog ingested rat poison on the property, but you stated you never put it out, correct?
No, it's not correct.
In your affidavit, you said that you've never put out poison.
No, it said, it doesn't say never. I said at that time, I did not have poison out because the dog had ingested it. So
Okay.
after the ingestion is when we removed poison from our property.
Okay.
Which was a long time before this dispute.
Are you saying the dog ingested it on your property or on my property?
On my property, because I was trying to kill the rats that were coming from yours.
Okay, well, you have no proof they're actually coming from our property. We've cleaned up the property. We've cleaned up the trash. We've been in compliance.
One at a time, please. Just so she's got to type everything. Because we'll probably be dealing with this again. You have further questions?
Do you have any proof of the rats coming from 1 Center Street? And I will tell you that I have seen them cross the road from over at the medical center, come across the road, go through my backyard and into your yard.
What constitutes proof? Do you need an autopsy from
Do
the
you
rat?
have
photo
pictures
of
of
a
any- do you have
dead
pictures
rat
of any of it?
with
He's
the
answering
driveway
the question.
constitute proof.
He asked me a question. I'm answering it.
We couldn't hear his answer to your question. You asked him a question. You didn't let him answer it.
No, he didn't answer it. He asked me another question.
Let
He
him
said what
speak
constitutes
one at a
proof.
time. All we need is one at a time.
Matt, please go ahead.
Yeah, I have a photo of a dead rat in the middle of your driveway.
Is that the one that you threw there?
Are you accusing me of something?
I have
Or
video
is
cameras,
that a
Matt. Is
question?
that the one you threw there in anger?
I'm not sure what you're talking about, but
I have video cameras on the property. I'm asking you if it is a rat that you threw there in
there
your
were
anger.
multiple rats that I had to dispatch and that my dogs caught in and around our property every time.
The
that you
one that you saw in my driveway, did you throw it there?
No. It was pretty evident every time you showed up, they would disturb whatever nest they had, and they would.
So my next question to be is, there was only ever one rat that I found on that property.
Well, you weren't looking very hard.
And that rat was underneath something where it's impossible for you to have seen. Impossible. And I took pictures.
Congratulations.
So it would have been possible for you to see that rat, unless you put it there. I know. Well, what difference does that make?
Do you have further questions for Matt, sir?
Right. Well, yeah, it's just
Please remember that if you're talking,
Lindsay
you
Van
need to
Schweik.
talk into your microphone.
They were talking with each other, Shannon.
Lindsay Van Schoik.
I've asked him if
the-
he had another
The issue
question
that
for
she
Matt.
has is that you testified that you called Chuck on the 17th, but the 16th, but you have this testimony from the, what are you saying? Right. Well, right. He said he called him on the 17th, and his testimony here, which Chuck took, is from the 16th. So that's just a date that's off, Courtney. It really doesn't matter. It's just a date that's off. It really doesn't matter.
Anything further, sir?
That's not an issue for here. That's for the court. That's going to go to court. We address it in the court. It doesn't matter. We address it in the court.
And that's what the issue you're discussing is
With the
reference-
adverse-
the adverse
adverse
possession.
possession,
So
correct.
you have a disagreement of where the property line is what you're
Not
saying.
only that, the property's been used, and if it wasn't a problem with them, I wouldn't be doing this, but because it is, I have no need. We have children there. We're going to be living there regardless of what everybody wants. And, there's gonna be children there and I can't have access back there. So I either have to have adverse possession of that property or a fence put up, or he needs to stay on his side.
Okay, it's been a while since I used to be the constable and I served some civil and criminal process, but I know it may be a little bit off topic, but adverse possession is, correct me if I'm wrong, and Mr. Stern, you can advise, say it's my property, I've let you use it for so long, but it's still my property, but because I've let you use it for so long, or let somebody use it for so long, they can file a motion adverse possession and
Correct.
take my property.
You are absolutely correct.
Okay.
And it's just that disputed property line. I mean, like, we have a nice white fence we wanna put up, we have nice stuff we wanna put up, and we can't do it because they're half.
I offered to put up a big, huge 6-foot vinyl fence all the way down. I also offered to buy the property and I was rejected. Just a little strip of land. I offered 3 times what it's worth, so that there'd be none of this aggravation going on with the property line.
But you've elected to go with the route of adverse possession then.
Because I haven't met with anything other than conflict.
Okay, so let me ask then, if this was not your driveway currently.
Hold
because
on a
it's still
moment,
their property,
Stefan, hold
where
on a
is
mo-
your driveway?
Hold on one
It
moment.
is my driveway.
Please
The
hold
driveway is
on
mine.
one moment. We're at the stage of do you have any further questions for Matt Tomberg?
No, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay. Peter has his hand up. Stefan, would you like to continue?
Well, I'm just curious enough. We're talking a driveway. Is there another driveway to this property besides that?
We
driveway that
do not
borders the
share a
fence?
driveway. If there was testimony given that we share a driveway, we do not share a driveway.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like, so there's the fence, and then there's the driveway. And
There's
then
a
our
strip of
One at
land.
a time,
There's a fence.
Yep.
There is
one of you at a time. I
There-
don't care who, but it has to be one at a time. It has to be into the microphone.
There is a strip of land that borders my driveway. Their property line goes for about 1.5 feet from the fence to my driveway.
Yep.
That's the end of it. There's no shared driveway. That driveway is mine. Lock, stock, and barrel. The garage sits right on that line. The driveway's right on that line. And guess what? That's where the original stakes are. So when I saw that, my original thing was, when I found out the property was for sale after the grandfather died, was to ask Mr. Thomberg. I'm sorry, I mess his name up as bad as he messes mine up. I asked him if I could purchase the property from him.
That's a lie.
Any kind of conflict.
Right.
I did. You told me that you would take it up with your relatives, as everyone owned the property at that time.
So just to clarify, and this is Josh Stern again, we're not here to discuss the boundary issue. That's not the board's.
I know it's way off topic.
Completely. Mr. Golick.
Peter Golick, question, Mr. Van Scoik. You just mentioned in this conversation with Matt here that you had found a rat under a pile of material, that there's no way that he could have found that. Where was that? On your property?
It was on my property, yes.
So the rat was actually on your property?
Yes, it was.
Okay,
It was lying underneath a
Thank you.
tire
That's all I
that.
need to know. Thank you.
That was in 2019.
Let's clear something up here first before we
Any-
go any further.
hold on.
If I could please say something, I would like to make a statement.
Is it his time to make a statement?
I just
a random
clear up a lot in
statement?
everybody's mind if I do.
Mr. Stern?
No, he's entitled to cross-examine and to question.
Thank you.
But this
Thank you.
a time for argument.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything further from your testimony, witnesses, submissions, Chuck Wise?
No further evidence, no further testimony.
Very good. Let's hear your questions.
You've entered this into evidence, I take it?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a reason?
Microphone, please.
Okay, you've entered this into evidence, I take it. Is there a reason there are certain pages missing, like page number 2 is missing? Okay, then page number 4, 6.
Huh?
Okay, then 22.
Well, yeah, like my computer messed up and it like cut off some of the pages and like put them into more pages. I think you're just missing the table of contents.
Well, it references, carries on to another section here, or what do I term
Yeah,
it?
it's just, it says the state of, it says the state of the property and then the pictures are below it.
Okay, well, it mentions sub 6 or trying to find your exact terminology here, but it appears that there's the sentence, mid-sentence, dead ends. It's not a complete sentence and it doesn't follow up on
You have it there for
the
you?
next page. I mean, the pages are numbered, but I'm missing them by the numbers. For example, page 15, then it jumps right to 17. It looks like it's kind of incomplete there.
So the sub 6 is just bags of leaves that were on the property, and then followed is the pictures because Chuck had said they were trash and were bags of leaves.
Okay,
I spent
well,
like 4 hours dumping them into clear bags just to prove the point.
You can't hear her.
What he's referring to is the bags of leaves. It cut off that section, and Chuck referred to them as trash, and I
Right,
literally
okay.
spent 4 hours dumping bags of leaves into clear bags just to prove they weren't trash.
right, okay.
And that's the only thing that was on the property that
Yeah,
could
okay,
be
I've got
represented as that.
17, but like I said, there's some pages that are missing. I mean,
I'll recopy those. and resend-
Gaetano,
Yes.
I'm just want to clarify that the copy I got by PDF by email is complete.
okay.
I believe so, Susan. Was that a question?
Statement.
No, I'm just making clarifying that the emailed version of it is complete.
Okay.
I don't know what you
Yep.
have there.
We're
So
missing
just
two.
the-
Thank you.
Evidently, the copier skipped a couple of pages of the machine, so.
What page you need, Bob?
Well, I'd just like to see it in its entirety, you know.
I mean, here, you guys can pass this one out.
Yeah, if you don't mind,
I don't
that
need
would,
the complete
that would
copy.
solve it. That's
Yeah,
fine.
I don't need the complete
Sure,
copy.
that works.
Huh? No, we don't.
Hold on. Time out. I don't believe your microphone is on.
Yeah, you guys can just pass it around. I just need one
Yeah,
of the half
Sure.
copies to reference.
If I get it back at the end of the evening, I'm fine.
Peter, did you have something else?
Yes. Mr. Van Scoik, I'm looking at your material that was turned in. This is the copies that Mr. Pickup made just before the meeting. I do have the email copy that's complete. I have seen it all, read it all before I came here. Page 5 here looks like a picture of the outside of the garage. It's got a picture of the 2 boarded up garage doors. It looks like the posted sign is there. It's some sort of a tarp that's covering up something you can't see.
Yes.
That is on the exterior of the garage, correct?
Yes.
It's no longer like that.
I'm just asking you a question. Just let me ask my questions, answer the questions as I ask them. Do not expound any further than what I need to know. I noticed in the pictures that we had there, even on the email ones, there were no interior pictures of the garage. Is there any of those anywhere in your
No,
information?
we don't have to provide them.
No,
Do we-
no, and I don't have to provide them to you.
Do we know if there's anything in the garage?
There is.
So this is Josh Stern, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but it looks like we're now going through some extensive documentation that has not been offered or admitted into evidence yet.
I agree. I want to close up the Chuck's complainants case, and then we'll open up the owners. Is that what you'd like to do? That's what I'd like to do. I think Chuck is done with his testimony, and now we're ready to move forward. We had a couple questions from the board regarding Chuck's testimony, and I believe we're ready to move to the owners, his chance.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
It was not clear to me why the September photography was not allowed to be presented. Is there a reason why?
Can I ask who's talking?
Chuck Wise, Town Health Officer.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Did we discuss why the September, we allowed the 5 December 8th photos?
I said that I could prove that they were taken.
Was there, I'm not asking you a question, sir. I'm trying to speak to my board. Was there a reason we didn't submit the September photos and they're now turned around?
The only question I understood was that Mr. Van Scoik wanted those removed from the room.
I
The board did
understand.
not agree to do that. You just went up and turned it around.
I understand that he has other photos. So before closing Chuck's testimony, would we like to allow those photos as part of Chuck's evidence? Anyone object to that?
I think we need to have, this is Susan, I think we need to have the most recent photos. And I guess at this point, the most recent photos we have is December, correct? Nothing has been taken since?
We have those ones submitted, Sue, and Chuck would also like to submit the September ones as part of his evidence. He's asking.
Right, but I mean, I'm saying in my view, I think the ones that should be submitted are the most recent.
Okay.
I think I agree with that comment.
This
No,
is
that's-
Jeff Stern again. I just want to clarify two things. One is that there's a difference between whether something is admitted into evidence and how much weight it's given. So the board can decide to admit something into evidence if it's relevant and still decide that they're not going to give it all that much weight in their decision because it's outdated and there might be newer photos. So whether something is technically relevant is not the same thing as, whether it's very powerful or persuasive evidence. Those are two separate issues. The court can admit a document or admit an exhibit and decide not to give it a lot of weight. So that's one thing. And then the other thing, I want to make sure that as we go through, we're very clear about exactly what we are admitting. And so I don't recall even earlier any specific vote or statement from the board as to the other 5 exhibits. So I agree that we should be clear and we should put on the record exactly which exhibits the board is actually admitting and considering.
We did discuss in detail the December ones, and we all agreed. I asked if we needed to vote, and we said no. So we've admitted the December ones, and I'm in favor of admitting the December ones because I'd like to see all evidence, regardless of its if it's relevant evidence to this case. I'd like to submit all of it. I'm in favor of the September ones also. Yes, sir.
Ben Mashore, Select Board. I think that anything presented by the health officer and the deputy health officer should be at least admitted into the evidence so we can view it, and we don't have to weigh heavily on it, but we should be able to look at it.
Is this where I present my objection? Is this where I present my objection to that? Well, he's listening. I object to those pictures because those pictures, and I can prove, were taken when Chuck Wise was told 3 separate times that he was trespassing on the property and needed to leave. We were working. Those pictures do not represent the property. They represent a day and a half of hard work being done, which makes a mess. And he was told he had to leave. He was told he had to put his camera away by myself, by a friend who was helping me, who he had taken pictures of his children. And we have a child present in one of those pictures. But none of them were taken legally. I question the legality of the drone pictures as to whether the drone can even be used for something like this. But that's further down the road. We get into a courtroom, a judge will decide that. But I'm objecting to those pictures because they were taken illegally. They do not represent the property as it is today. And Chuck Wise should have been charged on that date. And the chief refused.
Okay, you're objecting to those photos for those reasons stated. How does the board feel? I agree with Ben. on everything submitted that the health officer did. Anyone else?
I agree that they should be accepted, but they may not carry much weight when we
Correct.
get to the decision. So let's,
Correct. There's three.
let's get all the evidence admitted. And then we
Susan?
can-
Fine.
Relevant, you know, that's what we just heard.
We'll
from
make
these
that
gentlemen.
decision.
Correct, yep.
I'll concur. We'll decide
Okay.
that.
Is there anything else, Chuck, at this time for your case?
No.
And so to clarify, can the board, can we get an indication from the chair when the board has actually decided to admit documents? If we can just get a clear statement for the record as to what the board's decision is on any particular exhibits, I think that would be helpful.
Okay, the board has agreed to accept exhibit. What's that number?
We have Exhibit 1, which is photography from September.
Exhibit 1, photography from September.
Exhibit 2, photography from December.
Exhibit 2, photography from December.
Exhibit 3, affidavits concerning rodent infestations at 1 Center Street.
Exhibit 3, rodents on 1 Center Street.
There's been discussion of the photos. Has there been any discussion of the affidavits?
Discussion, we've admitted it.
Oh,
Well, my intention is to go through each and every one of those. And if I can't cross-examine the person that gave them, then they can't be admissible. So that person has to be here. That person has to be able for me to be able to cross-examine, or they can't be admitted as evidence or testimony. To take it out.
so I think we at least need some foundation to be laid by the health officer as to where these affidavits came from, how they were taken or how they were written, and why they're relevant.
Thank you. So the affidavits were collected by the Bellows Falls Police Department. The chief of police went to neighboring properties and simply asked them to provide a statement if they had seen, if they had anything to contribute towards 1 Center Street in terms of the property. I was not present during those affidavits. It was strictly between the police and those neighboring residents. Is there anything else that I need to include, Josh?
So, well, I'll leave it to Mr. Van Schoik as to whether he has any particular questions about any of those individual affidavits.
I have many on each one of them.
It's included in ours as evidence as well, though, so.
It's also included in evidence in their defense, so.
Thank you very much.
What part do we want to,
It's only in my evidence to show that it is wrong and should not be submitted. I want it to be not submitted as evidence.
so I would say now is your opportunity to.
I was not given the opportunity to be here on October 6th when the illegal hearing and all these affidavits and evidence were given, even though it was accepted. Let's not forget that that hearing and all this evidence was submitted illegally and improperly.
Okay, so what do we need to do with this affidavit here? You need to read it and cross-examine everything, or is he gonna do that in his thing? We haven't gotten to his testimony yet.
Attorney Stern, what's your position on these affidavits?
So again, I can't make this decision. I mean, it's up to the board. What I will say generally is that a foundation for a sworn affidavit typically includes, at a minimum, testimony from as someone who took the affidavit. And some potentially some more specific details about how the affidavit was actually taken and how the statement was taken from the witness.
So in this case, you're saying that we would have to hear from the police department as to how they conducted their collection of affidavits.
Yes, I think that testimony would be helpful.
But that still doesn't make them admissible if I can't cross-examine the person who's making those statements. I mean, if that's the case, I might as well not even be here.
So that person's not present, right, Chuck?
We have, yes, these people other than Matt Tomberg and Eliza are not present.
So is it fair to submit that tonight? If it can't be cross-examined from the affidavits, the person responsible for the affidavits?
Mr. Chairman, I believe it's possible that we could accept one, and that would be the testimony and the affidavit from Mr. Tomberg, who was here via Zoom. And Mr. Van Scoik did have a chance to question him in regards to that.
But not the PD. The PD was the other one?
Nope, that's correct.
Okay.
The rest of the people that are there, we may have to continue this hearing to have them present.
So I'll agree tonight. We'll accept.
Dave Bemis is available if you would like for him to be sworn in and
Might be
answer
helpful.
Okay, absolutely.
So we
One
will
second.
admit Matt Tomberg's affidavit.
He's here, so yes.
Yeah. And you've had a chance to.
Yeah, I have a chance to cross-reference. I'm just
So-
saying to people I can't cross-reference.
Yeah, no, I
We
agree with you
understand.
100%.
I think
Nope,
they're
that's
going to
fine.
be here in a minute.
You're going to admit.
And I actually have no problem with the way that
Chief, she's available.
I have no problem with the chief and the way that he took them. I have
We'll
no-
admit Bemis's testimony, affidavit, and he's on his way. We need to swear him in to hear that his testimony. Not sure where he is, if he's coming here.
Is he coming here?
He's gonna dial in about 30 seconds.
Okay. That's what I thought.
I would like to just go on the record saying that I am not questioning the legality or the process that these affidavits were taken. I'm not questioning that at all. As far as I'm concerned, that's all. It's non-relevant.
Okay.
So you don't need the chief, and you don't need to swear him in.
I
I
thought-
believe
I
that
thought
he.
you
I
would-
believe he took those affidavits in earnest, and I believe that they told him what's in those affidavits.
Okay. My understanding was you were gonna object to them being entered unless the person was here.
No, unless they were here, not the chief. To me, there's no relevance between the fact that the chief. If I say, you say your car's black, and I
Okay.
tell somebody your car's black,
Who
does
are
that?
the other affidavits? What are the ones we're in discussion, in question here?
These are simply abutting property owners.
And the names of those folks besides Tomberg are not here?
Right.
Right.
Okay. So do we need Chief Bemis for anything? We can't
I
accept the
believe-
other one. Go ahead.
I believe if you would like to admit them into evidence, you just need to question the chief.
So let me just clarify. This is Josh Stern. So am I understanding correctly that Mr. Van Scoik has no problem admitting the affidavits from people who he's had an opportunity to cross-examine tonight?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, so if all parties agree to admit an exhibit, then it can come in.
Correct. Some folks are not here, so some will be left out.
Right, but as to the exhibits that he's not objecting to, there's no reason to bring in the chief of police to testify. It's not necessary. If all parties agree to admit an exhibit, then the exhibit can be admitted.
So all of the affidavits he's accepting to be submitted?
Just the one from Mr. Tomberg is the only one we can accept.
Right, but if you question the chief about the affidavits that he received, then they are admissible.
It's hearsay. I'm not saying that he did not receive this information. I'm not saying he did not receive this information. I'm willing to give you that. He received this information. That doesn't make it factual, and it doesn't mean that it can be used because I'm not given the opportunity to cross-examine. I can't cross-examine the chief to what they say they saw or their opinions and hearsay, which a lot of it is opinion and hearsay. And some of it, I would not mind some of the affidavits being admitted for a sentence here and a sentence there, but there's also a sentence here and a sentence there that's nothing but hearsay and opinion. And if I can't cross-examine them on that, then it shouldn't be allowed to be evidence against me.
So we'll accept the Tomberg affidavit, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
Okay. Do you have any further questions for Mr. Wise, any board members? Do you have any questions for any of the testimony we've heard? Are we ready to move on?
I just have one question for Chuck. Wait, Gaetano, this is Susan.
Yeah, sure.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
I just have a question for Chuck. Just to clarify that the last photos taken were December 8th. Nothing was taken since, correct?
Correct.
Correct was the answer, Susan.
And was there a reason for that?
Snow is
And
covered.
was there a reason for no further?
Yes, at the time we felt the snow coverage would obscure any of the pictures.
We actually, the day before the last snowstorm, cleaned the property up incredibly. I took pictures, which I have with me tonight, but I didn't know it was supposed to snow, and I thought I was going to be able to get them next day. So they're dark because they're at night, but the property is cleaned up. There's very little to do.
Any other question for Chuck from the board? Witnesses? Ready to move on to the owners present their defense of the request for a health order through live testimony, any affidavits, photographs, other evidence.
Maybe perhaps, Gaetano, this is Scott. Before we start the presentation from the owners, perhaps they should just make sure that they have the full set of the submission that was sent to me this afternoon. They can make sure that that was the attachment that was in the email, and then we could then hand those out to the board. I know they went out as a electronic copy, but I just want to make sure that that's a full submission so we can all work off the same.
Okay. All right.
exhibit.
Yeah, we have it.
So that's the full submission from what you sent me this afternoon.
Yes.
Okay, so perhaps maybe you want to then distribute that. To
So
the
we'd
board.
like, Mr. Van Schoit would like to submit his evidence in, I don't know what the term is here. He's presenting his evidence. We have it in paper. We have it email. Do you have a copy, sir? On a new one?
If everyone wanted to be interested on Exhibit B that everybody has.
So we're accepting this evidence from Mr. Van Schoit for the record.
Okay. The nighttime ones?
So once again, and similarly to what we did with Mr. Wise's evidence, he needs to offer his evidence before he can testify about it and before it can be admitted. So once he offers an exhibit, then Mr. Wise has a chance to object. and then the board can discuss any objections and has to make a ruling on the record before those exhibits can actually be admitted. And each exhibit should be identified as well. So if Mr. Van Schoik is offering an exhibit, he should identify it. And typically, in this case, he's the defendant in the proceedings. So his exhibits would be, in alphabetical order: Exhibit A, Exhibit B, etc.
What's this exhibit? What's this exhibit number, sir? The whole. What do you want to submit here?
You know what? Let's just. I want to get this over with. So, can I, if I say that it's okay for an affidavit to be submitted as testimony, if I'm allowed to state what my cross-examination of that testimony would be, can we do that? I'm not trying to hide anything here. I want this over with.
I'm not sure if I understand the question. What exhibit are you referring to?
So we have affidavits that Chuck provided to us, and they're affidavits which he submitted that were from October 6th. I will clarify that my agreeing to anything from October 6th is not saying that I agree with what took place on October 6th, because I do not. I feel that my constitutional rights were violated in many ways, and I plan on taking that to task. So I am not agreeing that if it was submitted on October 6th, that it should, I'm not agreeing that it's okay. What I'm trying to do is get the testimony over here tonight. I don't want to be back here. I'm sure nobody else wants to be back here. So if I say that the testimony of my other neighbor can be submitted, for example, say John, for example, John, what's his last name? Nardone. John Nardone. If I say that John Nardone's affidavit can be submitted, I would be willing to do that if I can present to the board what my cross-examination of that affidavit would be and my defense of that affidavit. I realize that they're not here to answer me, but at least I can answer the affidavit.
So clearly, as you said, they're not here to answer you, so you can't provide answers on their behalf to cross-examination. So it really wouldn't be cross-examination, but you do have an opportunity to rebut the evidence that's submitted with your own testimony. So if what you're asking is, can you speak to those affidavits and can you say, those were not correct because, and explain why, based on your own knowledge, the facts are different than what was in the affidavit, then yes, that's your testimony. You have
one of the reasons I'm willing to do this is because in these affidavits, this board has been tainted. There was no cross-examination. And as I said in my opening statement, there's no way that what happened on October 6th can be undone.
So
they already have seen these affidavits. They've already heard these people testify. And I had no chance for cross-examination.
I want to clarify a couple of things. I can't give you legal advice, Mr. Van Schoik.
I'm not asking for legal advice. I'm asking if I say that these affidavits can go in, will they be treated as though I can state this affidavit from John Nardone? He was illegally on my property. It should not be accepted. It should never have been heard. He admitted that he was trespassing, and charges have been pressed against him. Am I going to be able to defend myself against those affidavits?
Everything that you just said, you can say in your testimony. You will have an opportunity to testify, and you can testify about the affidavit. You can testify about Mr. Nardone and why what he said was incorrect. Do
I have to allow them into evidence today, or can I just present that?
Once again, I can't give you legal advice about whether to agree to admit an exhibit or not. I represent the town. So that's your decision. If you do agree for them to be admitted, then they'll be admitted. And that's really all that I can tell you about that. Other than to say that, yes, regardless of whether they come in or not, you have an opportunity to testify based on your own knowledge about the property. And if you choose to directly address the exhibits and the affidavits in your testimony, you can do so.
Okay, and they can ask me questions about them back.
Yes, if you testify about something, then the health officer, Mr. Wise, will have an opportunity to cross-examine you just as you had a chance to cross-examine him.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm ready to go. Where's my statement? No, your statement. Where's your statement? Your whole thing.
I can't hear him. Was he?
Microphone, Peter. I turned it off there.
Peter Golick, Select Board. I would like to move that we accept the affidavits for the record and listen to Mr. Van Scoyk's objections there too.
I'll second it, I guess.
Yeah, we all agree, right?
Yeah.
I don't think we need a motion.
And I
Thank-
object to it because I can't cross-examine the witnesses. No, I can't cross-examine them.
But you
Well,
wanted,
I'm allowed to talk about what they saw on October 6th. That doesn't mean I'm admitting it into, I'm admitting my story. That doesn't mean that they can admit theirs.
I think, sir, that we understand that, but you understand that now we are taking all these affidavits in where we were originally doing, I think, just one. But you can address each one if you want, is my suggestion, one by one at a time. But also the health officers will have an opportunity to cross-examine you in reference to your comment.
So I need to just interrupt for a moment again to clear, because previously the board decided to admit just the one because Matt Tomberg was here to testify. And Mr. Van Schoik had some questions about what would happen if he did withdraw his objections, but it does not appear that he's withdrawing his objections.
I am not.
So it does not appear that anything has changed. And I would note, the rules of evidence do apply in these administrative hearings. So they are considered out of, well, not out of court, but they're statements that were made outside of the hearing. And that is typically, with some exceptions that are far too numerous and complicated to get into now, those are considered hearsay under the rules of evidence and would not be admitted. So it does not appear that Mr. Van Schoik is withdrawing his objection. And so the board, under the statute, needs to apply the rules of evidence in its decision as to whether to actually admit the affidavits.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Withdraw.
Peter Golick, I'm withdrawing the motion to accept the affidavits.
We're removing,
All but
accepting
Matt Tomberg.
all but Matt Tomberg.
Correct.
According to what they get a witness, so they can testify in the car with my child.
Not gonna have to mind my 4-year-old.
She'll have to leave and take care of him, but the witness can be here to testify. So let's give it back.
This is all the, you need to reference specific pages for pictures. It's all right here.
Okay, so I have first sub 2 on page 4.
I have color pictures if you guys want to see them.
Say, don't have that copy in front of me.
I have full realization that the property is not done at this time, but I am presenting this to show that on October 10th, no, this says 10th.
This was the 6th.
Okay, but it says October 10th. Okay, so on October 6th, sub 2 is the pictures of the condition of the property. And the reason I
Says the
took it-
10th. Which is it, sir?
it says sub 2.
So that continues on to the next page. My
Okay.
computer messed up and it cut off a lot of stuff and moved everything.
Okay.
And the reason that's important is because I bypassed Chuck Wise on October, so it was October 6th after the hearing had taken place. I sent Peter, I sent a email to you asking you and another member to come to the property to see that it was not in the condition that had been presented at the hearing. I got no response. I don't know what happened, but I sent you an email on the 8th.
Okay, you're looking at me. I
That's
don't.
Stephen.
No, I'm
That's
sorry.
Peter.
I'm
I think you
sorry.
said-
I'm sorry. I sent it to Peter and I believe it was to you that there 2 people would show up at the property. And I asked for a time and said, you're more than welcome to come. Do not bring Mr. Wise.
Okay.
I got no response.
We were advised by our attorney not to respond.
Okay?
Only just it would taint our memory going into this thing because we were supposed to remain objective.
Well,
So
that's why these
we're-
pictures are here, is so that you can see the
well,
condition of the
that's
place
fine. That's fine.
at that time. So you know what he presented on October 6th. And this is October 10th,
No, that's October 6th.
October 6th and October 9th,
October 10th.
10th. Well, you have the wrong dates here.
No, it's because it's cut off. That's
Okay,
why I said
sorry.
this.
Okay,
All right.
continue.
So that's the reason for these to be submitted, is to show that Mr. Wise had presented a lot of evidence showing the property in a condition different than what it was. I did not do anything to the property for 2 weeks. On legal advice, told me to leave the property as it was until I could get someone from the town there to inspect the property. I contacted the state health to see if I could get them to come to inspect the property.
And then on page 7 is the property on December 24th before the snowstorm. No, yeah, December 24th.
That's the day before the snowstorm, after we had done major cleanup, and I thought I was gonna be able to go back the next
That
day
was
and
just
take
before
pictures.
Christmas. There was no snow. That one, that's December 24th.
24th, subject 4.
It's on page 6, not 7.
6. Hold on. You messed up my
Where are we at, sir?
Okay, so yeah, so this is the property on, you're right, on page 6 is the property on December 9th. Oh, we did
Says
have
the
the.
24th on the.
we did.
Page 6, subject 4.
Says you took the picture on the 24th.
So
on the
it's because
bottom.
my computer cut off that, if you,
Some pretty good clear images on page 6.
yeah, that would be the 9th.
Subject 4 says the property on December
Well,
24th.
so like, see how it cuts off, it cuts off. So the picture that's above it goes with the point that's above it, so like this.
Okay, gotcha. So the dark pictures,
So the dark pictures are the 24th, and then the light pictures on the 6th,
Okay.
on page 6
Okay.
are
thank
the
you.
9th.
And you can see from this that these pictures do not match Chuck Wise's pictures from December 8th.
We have, yes, sir.
Sean McGinnis, Fire Chief, Bells Falls. If we're gonna dispute dates that pictures were taken, I'd like to dispute the dates that their pictures were taken. I actually have the digital copies that would show the digital timeline of when these pictures were taken, the pictures that we took.
Sure.
I would like the same from them.
Okay. We can do that.
All right, thank you.
Well, I mean, we're still trying to figure out, because it took 5 pages for me to be clear what the dates were. So we're up to page, we're up to page 6, saying that the photos there, so it's the
September, that's
property
just the
December 9th, but it's actually the next page, right?
Oh, yeah, so we have page 4, that was. Page 7 is the 24th.
Sir, I have a question. What date, is this not that black car?
Yes, it is.
In
It
your,
is.
in your evidence that you said was long gone?
Yeah, I was confused, actually. It's the red car that was not there, it's the black car that was
The
there.
black car is actually
It actually
registered.
arrived on that day, which is probably why he took the pictures. I'm sure the Converse called him.
I can't hear the microphone.
He was asking about the date of the black car, and Courtney just informed me that it wasn't the 10th, it was the 8th when she purchased that, 9th when she purchased that vehicle. And it is in that picture
Thank you.
on the 9th. So I had said that the black car was not there on the 8th. It was the red car that was not there on the 8th.
But the black one's the one you just bought?
Yeah, it's registered.
Right.
She had just bought it.
So you just bought it. Did you do a transfer of plates on that, or how did you do
It's
that?
registered in New Hampshire. I have to get the plate.
Because the black car is showing a Vermont license
Yeah,
plate
it
there.
has. It had my Jeep plate because AAA wouldn't pick it up because I wasn't going to drive 4 hours to get the car.
So they told us we had to put
I had to
a
go
plate on it.
put the
Didn't matter
plate on
whether it
the
was good or
plate, but
not.
I got
Just
it. I got the car first deal, and I've always wanted one.
Okay.
AAA said, put a plate on it. We don't care what it is, but we can't pick it up without a plate on it. So I learned something. I didn't know that.
What page are we on?
It makes sense, I guess. So where's my first papers I'm reading? Where am I? I'm trying to get what I'm reading from here, Courtney.
Go ahead.
Sir, can you explain the pictures on 9 and 10? They're black and white. They're shows
Okay,
them.
so those are from. We use those from Chuck's evidence. Just in the whole packet, it's like I put it under trespassing from when he went onto the property. So it relates to him trespassing on the property because you can. Wait, this is mine. So you can see, like in the September pictures, you can see the Tomberg's fence. In the pictures, that is impossible to not take, like not come on our property to take those pictures. Because it's on the side with West Terrence and it's right by our porch.
What page? Pictures you're
So it would be
referring to?
10 and 9,
That would be the pictures that are.
those pictures.
Pictures that are turned around.
If you look at them closely in color, you can see the fence. So like,
We need a microphone. You need a microphone if you're gonna speak.
This picture here, that's the Tomberg's fence. He says that he takes it from the Tomberg's line or from the street. That's impossible. And it's impossible for that to have been taken from the street with a ladder in any way, shape, or form. This was definitely taken from in front of this building here, in front of the camper that is there. The same with this. This was all taken when he was told on 3 separate occasions that he was trespassing and needed to leave. He was told that he needed to put his camera away, that he could not take pictures. I was there, my friend David Stewart was there, and Jeremy, who was right over here, was there. And he can testify to the fact that he was told he needed to leave the property. He said to me, Lindsay, we need to get these issues resolved, and I invited him to come back to the property 1 week from that date at 10 a.m. in the morning. And he could inspect the property with me and take all the pictures that he wanted.
You have evidence of that discussion, any kind of thread, witness that what you just said.
I have
took
a
place?
written testimony from David Stewart, who could not be here tonight.
You have a witness from that
I have a
discussion?
witness right there.
The discussion that everything you just said happened, and then the week come back, invited him back in a week. Where's that transcript?
it's page 24, 25, and 26. It's a statement from Jeremy Kimberly.
And they're here?
He's
Yes,
right
he
there.
is.
So once again, before there can really be testimony about the contents of all of these various documents and exhibits have to be offered and then admitted. So if the Van Schoiks want to offer an exhibit into evidence, they should do that with each specific exhibit. And then Chuck can make any objections that he has, and then the board can decide whether to admit the exhibit.
You need David's.
We've accepted Exhibit A, correct?
I need it.
That's a sub two then, on page 4 you're talking about.
Oh, he's got them listed here with page numbers. Exhibit A, B, C, D, E.
It is. It's because my computer messed up.
We're into B. We did admit Exhibit A. I would entertain we admit exhibits A, B, C, D, and E and listen to that testimony.
I'm getting it.
So is there any objection from the health officer to the admission of any of these exhibits?
There's not.
None, no objection from the health officer. You wish to continue?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes, sorry. Okay, so I will read to you. Can I have the Jeremy statement?
And I understand that this seems like an unnecessary technicality, but once again, I don't think there was a clear statement on the record from the board that as to which exhibits are being admitted.
Does everyone agree with my recommendation that we accept exhibits A, B, A, state of 1 Center Street, B, trespassing, exhibit C, trash, debris, cars, exhibit D, rats, exhibit E, children's safety. Everyone agree to admitting that?
Do you have the corresponding page numbers for that, Gaetano, just for, because it is.
Yes.
Okay.
Exhibit A, page 3 to 6. Exhibit B, trespassing, page 6 to 8. Exhibit C, trash, debris, cars, page 9 through 13. Exhibit D, rats, page 13 to 16. Exhibit E, children's safety, page 17. And while we're at it, I'd like to also, I haven't seen the statements. I don't know how many can be. Are they here? What are those people? Statements.
There's only one.
So
person
we'll
that
wait
is
on that.
here.
Right now, A through E with pages, with title and pages listed. Does everyone agree to that? Yes? Need some kind of verbal.
Yes.
Yes.
I agree.
As far as the trespassing issue goes, is there any objection to my submitting Jeremy's testimony at this time, as he is the only one that I have that can be cross-examined as to the statements I've made to Chuck Wise trespassing on the property and those pictures which have been admitted as evidence that were taken at that time?
Pages 6 through 8 is your trespassing exhibit.
Correct.
And you have a witness here?
Yes.
He's a witness for.
He's a witness for a lot of things, so I figure we just read his
He's
whole
there every-
statement
he's
and
there
then
every time we're-
One at a time.
he is a witness for a lot of things that took place. So if we can get that out of the
Sure.
way, it would be great.
Sure. If he wants to testify on this exhibit, let's get him over here. We need to swear him in.
Swear him in, yeah.
Just bring him over here.
Hi.
You can tell them who you are. Hmm? Yeah. You can see, you recognize him?
You need a microphone
You
at any
recognize
time you
you.
speak, so grab one of
You
those
recognize
too,
you.
and I'll swear you in. Just state your name.
My name is Jeremy Kimberly. My name is Jeremy Kimberly. And
Hold on 1 second. Please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear that the evidence you shall give relative to the cause now under consideration shall be the whole truth, nothing but the truth, under the pains and penalties of perjury.
I do.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I worked for them for a very long time.
I'm just gonna, you have to speak into the mic every single word. Most of this is a virtual and we have a court reporter documenting every word. You can speak slow if you wish. She has to get every word. Thank you. You want a seat, bub?
Yeah.
Would you like to sit down?
What I just remind.
So pull the mic down by your mic and give. We can't hear when, and so let him, we just,
Would there be any objection to him reading the same thing off of the phone because she's marked this copy up, or?
I don't have any objection to where he reads it from. We just like to hear his testimony.
It's good. It's good. I can read it. I can.
Okay.
I, Jeremy Kimberly, have been working with the Van Soik on 1 Center Street since March of 2020. There is no trash on the property. There has been no trash since I've started working for them. There has been clothes shattered about and the household items, but nothing that is a health concern. The only possible thing that could be mistaken for trash on the property has been leaves and yard waste, especially 3 black trash bags and 6 white, all full of leaves, which were transferred to clear white bags on October 14th to the pickup by the town the following week. The Van Soik children and the neighborhood children do not play in the trash. There is no trash. There is play equipment that belongs to said Van Soik children. It's not anywhere near the street. It is neatly tucked away. Lindsay Van Soik has never brought in trash to the property on a trailer. Not has trash ever magically appeared overnight. There has been no trash on the property, and all my time I've been being at the property, I have only seen 1 rat that had been caught in a trap and very clearly put on the Van Dyke property. I have stayed at the property overnight and I have not seen a rat or heard a rat in the house since I started working for the Van Soiks. I have observed a rat crossing the driveway and going into the garden next door. I have never observed rat poison on the property. On March 10th, I was cleaning out the basement of the property so the old boiler could be removed. I can at least wait. I'm reading the statement.
This your statement, sir?
Yes. I'm the one that signed it on the back.
Are you the one that wrote it?
I am the one that wrote it.
Okay.
We typed it up for him.
My handwriting, you wouldn't be able to read
That's
it.
fine. It's just my question.
It's just hard to read because of the highlight. It's like a dark.
I understand. I just wondered whose statement.
Been removed. When I walk, heard someone one walk around up above me, I was at the property alone. It was later discovered that this person was John Nardon, which he stated he was on the property. I can at least add to there being black bags full of trash.
He said they were trash. You're telling them what there was in there.
Oh,
He said there was trash.
he said it, there was trash. Wow, I can't read this shit lately. At least stacked up in the dining rooms, and Mr. Van Schoik was collecting for the homeless. On September 17th, 2020, Chuck Wise showed up at the property around 7 p.m. while myself, David Stewart, and Lindsay were doing work. He walked on the property and Lindsay Van Schoik told him to leave. Chuck proceeded to do what he wanted. Chuck continued to take pictures without Van Schoik's permission and remain on the property. Chuck told Lindsay, "I'm trying to get a view of what the Tombers sees." Lindsay then told Chuck then to go on their property. David told Chuck to put your, excuse my language, fucking camera away.
Who said that?
David.
Who? David Stewart. I was asking.
David Stewart.
Gentleman speaking. And where were you?
Behind him. There are children here. All while Lindsay, David, and myself told Chuck to leave the property numerous times. Chuck then left on September 24th, 2020. Myself and Courtney Van Slyke were at the property. We were getting ready to leave. Chuck Wise showed up at 4:30 p.m. alone. Chuck handed Courtney paperwork. He stated talking to Courtney about the property and how the property looked worse than it was the week prior. He said there's not even electricity here. How did you get anything done? Pointed to her Bible and said, "Where did you get a piece of get a junk car like that?" Courtney responded with, "There is electricity. I can take you over to the meter and you can see both units are on." She told me to go inside and turn the kitchen light on, just to prove the power is hooked up in the house. I did just that while she walked over and showed Chuck the meter. After Chuck saw the light on in the kitchen, I turned it off and walked back to the front porch. Courtney was talking or Chuck on the lawn for about 10 minutes. Then walked back to the front. She told Chuck she needed to leave to go pick up her other child. I was leaning on the front railing. The front door was open and the screen door was shut. Chuck Wise walked by me and looked inside the screen door. Courtney said once again, "I need to leave." Chuck opened the door and went inside. She never told Chuck Wise he could go enter the property. Courtney ran after Chuck and went inside. I could hear yelling inside the house. Chuck came out, followed by Courtney. She slammed the front door and told Chuck to get the fuck off her property. Chuck responded, "Thank you for all the hard work and your time. Have a good day." The time was now 5:15. Daycare closes at 5:30. Courtney immediately called Lindsay Van Soyk and we left to go get Hadley. The pictures that were present at the October 6th hearing did not represent the property in its state at that time. They didn't even present the property on September 24th, 2020. The Suburban was no longer there. The bathtub, wood stove, and other things was moved inside. The wood that had been neatly stacked was moved from the property. It appears that based on the work we were doing, the pictures were taken the first week of September. So clearly, Jeremy Kimberly, signed by me.
Need a microphone, sir.
I've submitted this testimony as evidence due to the fact I was not there. But this is to back up further the evidence that I stated when I was there. I was not there for all of his testimony, but the testimony when he showed up on Friday night, he literally weaved his way through myself, Jeremy, and David to get to the back of the property because we were clearly blocking him from going to the back of the property. As a matter of fact, I contemplated in my mind just taking him and throwing him right up against the wall. I told him that he needed to leave. He did not leave. He said, "I want to see the Trombergs," as he testified. I will testify to the same. He then made the comment, "How do you even get something like that in here to a red truck that I am working on?" I told him I drove it in. His comment was, "I doubt that." He then walked over and said that the place looked worse than it ever had. I was getting really, really mad at this time. He knows there were 3 trailer loads taken off the property, 2 dumpsters taken off the property, along with at least 20 trailer loads to scrap yards, etc. And that stuff was not there. He showed up on a Friday night when we were working, which is when he took those pictures. He was told to put the camera away. Him and Mr. Stewart got into a verbal altercation. I imagine I was looking very angry because Chuck did an about turn with his aggression of being there and left. I decided that the best thing to do here is just to try and get this resolved. I said, "Chuck, why don't you meet me here next Friday morning and we'll go through everything." He said, "Okay." Chuck then came on Thursday night, the night before he was supposed to meet me at 10 a.m. in the morning, welcome, and violated my 4th constitutional rights by entering my house and walking through my house uninvited and unwanted. That falls on this board. That falls on this town. Not just that he violated the trespassing time and time again. And he started violating it right from day one. He would come around to the front door saying it was the front door when I clearly told him our front door is on Center Street. But he wanted to walk around the back of the house and come around to the front from the other side. He did that on 3 occasions until I let him know that I did not want that taking place anymore. He continually shows up whenever we're working. If I'm not doing anything, Chuck's not there. I hear nothing. I've never heard a word from this town until I go there to work. And then everybody's in my face. I never see a police car go by but once or twice a week. If I'm there, they're there all the time. I might see 5 or 6 times during the day. I have my neighbors sitting on their porch staring at me. I have Matt in his driveway pacing back and forth. constantly. To have him come and interrupt us when he's not even supposed to be there and then take these pictures and use them as evidence, it's just, I can't even fathom what goes through that man's mind. This whole rat thing, I'm going to testify to the issue. Not to mention that he brought up to Courtney on the, to weaken her, I'm sure, when he was discussing with her that he was there trying to, in the guise of trying to keep this from taking place. Mind you, he had an appointment with me at 10 o'clock in the morning. But he purposely went there when I wasn't there and Courtney was. He said that she should cooperate with him, as his interest was to keep her name out of headlines again. I don't think I need to tell anybody what that means. It was disarming for her. And it was crude, rude, and despicable to me, and should be to this board. You employ that man. As far as the rats are concerned, there were numerous rats at 1 Center Street in April of 2018. 19. No, it was 18. All right, fall of 2019. I'm sorry. Right, April's when we took. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. April. Okay. In April of 2019, I discovered that the person that I thought was going to the dump was putting all the garbage in the barn, in the garage. I had no idea. I was not feeling well. I was glad to have it taken care of, and I was taking care of 2 young children while she was at work. As soon as that was discovered to be an issue, I took care of it. There were over 100 bags of trash that were stacked in that garage. They came out, they were neatly bagged up, they were put on a trailer. As soon as it was discovered that the trailer was not roadworthy because I had lent it to someone, we took another route, and that was to get rid of it. We took it to the dump. It was gone. I have emails from Chuck telling me what a great job I did, how great it was, and would I mind bringing Wendy Harrelson by to see what a good job we had done on cleaning up the property. I explained to him that I would rather he came after we got rid of all the broken down furniture that was there, but I guess she came and looked anyway because I spoke to her on the phone. His message to me was that it was a Herculean task that I had committed, and he was quite surprised and impressed. There were rats on the property at that time.
What property?
On my property.
From where?
1 Center Street. From that trash that was in the garage. In 2019. That's not why we're here today. But
I
they
understand.
were there then.
I understand.
I'm agreeing that they were there then.
Okay.
I did not treat with rat poisoning. I treated with, I wanted to bring rodent sheriff. It is harmless to children. It is harmless to pets. And I personally can't imagine anybody using the rat poison that you buy.
What was that date?
That was April of, Chuck can probably help me out there.
I'm asking you.
Fall of.
You just stated that.
I'm sorry.
Made
Fall
that
of 2019. Wait, I can look on my, I can give you the exact date by looking on my
It's okay.
email. It was fall of
Sometimes
2019.
I like to hear you continue. I was just.
Okay.
Those are also the pictures that were given to the Brattleboro Reformer, just so you guys are aware.
That was from 2019.
Okay.
That was presented as evidence on October 6th as the current state of the property. And that was testimony given on October 6th, that it was the current state of the property. And those pictures were given to the Brattleboro Reformer as the current state of the property. And that was done once again by your employee, Chuck Weiss. They were over a year old. They were on about a different situation that had nothing to do with the current situation. The things that followed from the people online and the public were horrendous. The slander is incredible. This should never, ever have been handled this way. Never. It should have been taken. We should have had a meeting. Yeah. We should have had a meeting. We should have discussed it. If we needed to discuss the past, we could have discussed the past. But the past certainly shouldn't have been entered into evidence as the present. I have a hard time containing my anger over this. I want it resolved. I want it resolved amicably. The property is not attracting rats. There are no rats. I invited Chuck Wise back in June this year when he was there citing me. I invited him in front of the chief to come onto the property and inspect it for rats. He refused. I then invited him onto the property when he served me for dumping, and I'll explain that. Everybody had been complaining about this pile of deck wood that I had. So I moved it over to where I could get it, decide to separate the good pieces, because it's a rare wood, to finish the other deck, which is in disrepair. It's done. I did finish the disrepair. I fixed it with that wood. So I split the wood and I took the rest of the wood, put it on the trailer, and took it to Claremont, which is what I do with this stuff. I put it on my trailer. I have a house in Claremont. I'm in Claremont constantly. Why wouldn't I go pay less money to get rid of stuff in Claremont? It's considerably cheaper. And I do load up the trailer and I do put stuff on it, but I have never, ever brought anything to that property that was not building material, wood stove, furniture, or something that was going to be used in relation to the property. Nothing, ever. I have never brought a bag of trash to that property from anywhere else at any time. It has not happened. I haven't brought a broken down bicycle there at any time. In addition to being invited on the property to inspect things, he complained about the trash. Oh, incidentally, to finish that, I got a citation for dumping when I moved the wood to a place where I could get to it and access it to take it to the dump. 3 hours after that wood was moved, the chief showed up and gave her the citation for that and a gate that we put up to keep the babies in line because it was dumping to him, because it was on the Thornburg's property line, that little 1.5 inch strip. Yeah, that's how ridiculous and captious this whole thing has gotten. There have been many and numerous people who have accused us of having safety issues for children. Well, if you're so damn concerned about those children, where the hell was DCYF or whatever you call it around here? DCF. Why weren't they called? Why weren't they called? Never once. No one has ever called. Isn't that what you do? If you have a health concern for children, you have a safety concern for children. I have a statement here, although David's not here to read it, so I don't know whether I can admit it or not. The neighborhood children that have been seen playing in the yard were his children. He's a friend of mine. His children come to play. He doesn't have a yard. He lives cooped up in an apartment. So when he'd come over and he would help me, and they'd all help out in the yard and stuff and doing stuff. It's how a lot of work got done. I'm disabled. I need a lot of help. And thankfully, I have people to help me. But in his testimony, he testified to that evening that Chuck was there. If you'd like me to read it, I would read it. I don't know. You can decide whether I could submit it as evidence or not. He is not here to cross-examine. I was there to everything he's testifying to, so you can ask me. So can I read it?
Which one?
David Stewart, his testimony.
If he's not here to
He's
cross-examine,
not here,
I have
no.
no interest.
He is not here.
To reply, same rule applies, same as-
No, I agree. That's
You
why I
don't
asked.
accept
That's
that,
why I
you
asked.
can't accept
I'm
it.
going to testify to what he testified.
fair.
I've already told you what happened with Chuck Wise. He was there.
Yep.
He also says that there was a picture taken of his child. I don't know. I saw the camera was out and they were there. I will testify that the children that have been seen playing it, because they referenced that it was older children, so they obviously were just running around the neighborhood and going into my yard. They are older children, but they were not neighborhood children. I'm not sure where a person becomes responsible for somebody else's children entering their yard, but not in my book, and my kids better not, and never did.
Anything else, sir, you want to
Yes.
submit?
Where's the rest of the stuff to submit?
Just for the record, the page numbers stated earlier do not correspond
So now I'm going to talk about their affidavits.
with the correct exhibits in the, for the record.
Okay, I need a break. I'm going to let Courtney take over here.
I need a break too.
Yes, you can.
Do you have more testimony?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, why don't we just recess for about 5 minutes, give everybody an opportunity for a break.
Sounds
bathroom
awesome to
break
me.
or whatever. And then,
Sounds good. Recess for 5 minutes.
If I had been here on October 6th, we would not be here today.
Okay, we'll reconvene from our short recess. So just to be clear, the information you've submitted into evidence, Exhibit A, B, C, D. That's what we're covering in the one statement here tonight.
If you would like to, if I can say
Correct.
something. Correct. What we just discussed as far as time goes.
Okay.
If you would like to adjourn this meeting and have it again, if necessary, you guys can get together and say, do you think we need to move on or we don't need to move on? If you think we need to move on, we can stop now. We can adjourn now and schedule a meeting for next week or 10 days or whatever you want to do
For further
to
testimony?
finish the testimony. Correct.
Which portion of the testimony is further?
John Nardone,
They'll be here?
No, these, I have
Sure
no
we can
idea.
contact
I'm
them
sure we
and
can
tell them.
contact them
One
and
at a
ask
time.
them to be there.
One at a time, please.
they spoke at the October 6th meeting, so.
I really feel that I need to defend myself against the October testimony that this board has heard.
And just the stuff like hairs. and
Well, what we've heard tonight is what we're basing in any decision we make. Is
We're
what-
all
is the
human. We're all
testimony
human beings.
is the testimony we've heard tonight, which is the presentation, Chuck, and all the information you've said is what we'll be carrying forward in our
So
deliberation.
you're going to tell me that you're a superhuman being and you can take away all the bias that you might have from what you heard on October 6th.
To be perfectly honest with you, absolutely. What I'm basing my opinion on is what I've heard tonight.
Well, if you're basing your opinion on what you heard tonight, I feel pretty strongly that I don't need to defend that. If you're not going to include that.
I'm only including what has been
Okay.
presented
Then
and
we will-
discussed,
Then we will at this time.
deliberated, crossed from this evening.
First, before I go further, does anybody have any questions for Jeremy?
I do not. I just ask you one more time. You wrote that statement?
Yes, I did.
He did not type it up.
I wrote it.
Jeremy is
Yeah, he had to read it.
Jeremy is challenged.
Okay.
He's a good worker.
Are you ready to ask the card?
No, to me, some of the words he was speaking were in his words that he wrote. So that was my question.
If you looked at David's statement, you
Okay. So here's how I feel. And like we just discussed, I feel like we've had a whole lot of information. We've had a lot of information from your side here. We've been discussing it. We've heard it. We have a packet here to reference. And if you'd like to summarize,
Can't hear him.
Thought it was on. I will finish with the issue with the rats. I will tell you that although there were rats there, I put out the stuff. They were gone within a 6-week period. I saw none. I enclosed around.
what was that
the-
day? The
that was in August of 2019.
and that's when
over a
you
year
saw
ago.
one on your property there.
Correct.
You
I
sta-
saw
you
more
s-
than one.
You stated that in your testimony.
I did. I saw more than one.
Yep.
They were there.
Okay.
I did everything in my power to get rid of them, and I did.
Okay.
I did notice that some of them at that time were coming from across the street and through from the backyard of, I went to look where they could possibly be coming from, and I saw a property back there, 37 Terrence. No, what's that red place? What is it? Isn't that 37? Or it's back behind, it's the address behind 37 Terrence. There's a boarded up red house there. There used to be a couple junk cars out front, and a apple crate that was full of trash. And I noticed that some of them were living there, and coming from there. The rats that I have seen recently, I have seen God, he's a mother. I hope somebody got him. I haven't seen him, but I could, I almost went and got the gun, and I'll be perfectly honest with you. I sat up in the window and I was ready to let him have it with the silencer on and hope nobody heard me, but
Can't do that in the village.
You can? No, I know. That's why I said the silencer
Yeah.
on and nobody heard me. I didn't do it.
We live in the village.
I didn't. I was going to.
I think there might be an ATF requirement to have
Yeah.
something like that too.
Let's
For
not
what?
discuss that.
Silencer?
Moving on.
I'm from Vermont.
So are
from New
we.
Hampshire. So anyway, I said it was a thought. I didn't say I did it. I thought about going up and doing it. This thing was a monster.
Yep.
He kept coming over. I saw him on 3 occasions at dusk, which also will bring a point. People said that they saw rats during the day. You do not see rats during the day. Rats do not come out during the day. They are nocturnal animals. The earliest you will see them is dusk. They usually do not come out until half hour after. Believe me, I've gotten quite educated on rats. This guy would come across right from the health center across the street, and he'd wander right up through the yard and right over into the Thornburg's garden. I can tell you that I have found on my property chewed up seed packets from, I don't know, I'm assuming from Matt's. I don't have a garden, and I don't know who else has a garden in the area, but they could have come from anybody's in the garden. Courtney has some stuff here to submit on other properties where I know that there are rodents. It's obvious. One only needs to go look at the curtains in the camper that is there. If you come look at the curtains on my camper, there's no rodent stain. You won't find rodents in my camper.
Let's just finish up with the rats, and then I'll see if anyone has any questions for you. And
As I said, I don't use poison. I use the stuff that keeps them away, and it keeps them away. And everyone should use it if they're having a problem with rats, because they will not come around. The other thing I want to point out about everybody saying the rats are at my place, there has not been any food at that property that was not consumed while we were there and the trash taken with us since January of 2019. That was the last time there was food in that house. After we had the unfortunate accident in January, on January 30th, I went there and cleaned all the food out of the property because I knew I was not going to be going right back. There was not anything in the cupboards, nothing. And there has not been since that time. Rats do not go where there is not food. They'll come through. They'll take their trip through and check it out and see if there's anything there. But they're not staying there, they're not living there, and they're not coming from there. There is a problem, obviously, or we wouldn't be here, but they're not coming from 1 Center Street.
Okay,
And with that, I think I'm done unless you have any questions for me.
questions from you first, Mr. Wise?
None.
Questions from the board? Yes, sir.
Lindsay, do you have the letter from Chuck on October 22, 20 with the findings of fact on it?
Microphone's not on.
I asked Lindsay, Peter Golick, I asked Lindsay if he had the letter from Chuck from October 22nd, 2020 that state the findings of fact.
What date was that?
October 22nd, 2020.
No, I don't. I do not. Where did that come from?
Came from Chuck.
And where's it mailed to me? Was it sent to
I have
me?
no idea.
Email?
You're negating the fact that you didn't have it, so I was just.
I'm telling you, I'm telling you, I've never seen it. Can I see it? Is it evidence?
Just let Peter finish his question. I don't think he was quite done. And
I was
then-
going to ask Chuck if he sent it by mail or email or what. You remember that letter, Chuck? Has the findings of fact that was in our packet.
All correspondence was hand delivered.
Okay, so that went with the original order and et cetera, et cetera.
I haven't had anything hand delivered to me since spring of last year. Courtney has, but I have not received anything. But not in October. We received nothing in October. No one.
I didn't see Chuck until November when he banged on the door when I was doing something and I didn't respond.
Because there's a lot of statements of fact there of what they found, and it would be much easier if we just went down through that list. There's probably 18 questions that if we postpone this or continue this hearing to the
Well,
next.
I would. I'm
All you have
not.
to do is just either agree or disagree with what's written.
Well, I'd like
on
to see it before I say
it.
anything.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. I wouldn't say anything either until I saw it.
Right.
But
So I'm willing to take a look at it.
So was it mailed? What's the answer, Peter?
I don't know.
How
He
did
said
you
it was.
get
He said Chuck said he handed it to me, and I'm saying I never was handed that piece of paper.
Well, hold on a second. You mentioned just a second ago that you hadn't seen him since November.
She said she had.
Okay, she had, but this statement from Mr. Kimberly states references the 24th of,
Oh, we're talking about after the October 6th meeting. I did not see Chuck. I saw him on the day of the 6th when he came to look at the property, and that was the last time I saw him until mid-November.
okay.
Right. The reason I assume that because the October's.
Let's just get them going.
I assume that since the October 6th meeting was not done properly, that nothing was coming out of it other than another meeting. I didn't expect to get anything. I didn't know that there was anything. I'm not so sure that anything that you come up with is even legal.
Any other questions, Peter?
Just that Chuck could get him a copy of that. If we continue this hearing to another date, then it'd be very simple to get the answers to the question. He either agrees or doesn't agree. 10 minutes or 15 minutes, we can get this thing settled and go into deliberative session and make a decision.
My problem with that is that obviously that finding of fact was developed out of testimony and affidavits that I'm not responding to at the present time. So I just agreed that we wouldn't do that, but I'm not going to agree if that's going to be the case, because that finding of fact was found with those testimonies and those affidavits.
So this is Josh Stern. Just to clarify, whatever document is being referred to does not appear to be in evidence. So it's not substantive evidence that the board can consider. If the board has specific questions for Mr. Van Schoik, not about the contents of a document that's not in evidence, but just questions about the property or about what happened, then they're certainly free to ask those questions. I would also add that because this is the health officer, Mr. Wise's burden of proof, he does have an opportunity to present a case in rebuttal at the end, which means he can present additional testimony to rebut the testimony and evidence that has been presented by Mr. Van Schoik. It's his choice as to whether or not he chooses to do that. But assuming he does want to exercise that right to present a case in rebuttal, that may also be something to do at a later date if the court decides, or if the board decides to continue this to another date.
Okay, so any other questions for Mr. Van Schoik at this time? Susan, anything?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
So am I going to get a copy of that to look at?
Not unless it's admitted into evidence, which it hasn't been.
I never said I wouldn't agree to it.
But it's not in this hearing.
Okay.
Okay, so would you like, feel like you'd rest your case at this time, sir?
Well,
we have no further questions from the health officer or the board.
Well, if
In
I'd like to see
in
that
reference
piece of
to your
paper if it was
testimony.
sent to me, because I certainly feel as though there might be something in there that I need to testify to. And it's
But
certainly,
Not admitted as evidence.
The
so-
but
document-
it's certainly in your mind.
But the attorney it's not in this hearing. I haven't seen it. I'm not interested in seeing
Okay,
it.
all right,
I'll say it again.
all right, I got you.
Everything in here is from tonight.
Okay,
And there may be, and this is Josh Stern again, there may be some confusion. I believe that the document that's being referred to may be a document that was served by a sheriff, along with the notice of the Van Schoik's right to request a hearing. And I do believe they received that, and they did request a hearing. So it may be that there's just some confusion because they thought it was hand delivered by Mr. Wise as opposed to by a sheriff.
I don't have it. I have what was delivered by the sheriff, and that was not attached to it.
Okay, so it hasn't been entered into evidence here in this hearing.
And I believe there'll be another finding of fact after this evening, so.
Proceedings be recorded, marked with numbers. Okay, thank you.
But I mean, there's a lot of issues here. Number one, I want to tell you that it's been impossible to clean up without the water. I do feel that the town is very liable for that situation. I feel that the town is liable for the fact that I am paying rent when I own a piece of property and I'm paying taxes on it that can be lived in. With the water turned on and 3 weeks later, it's a done deal.
That's a village issue.
Village issue, whatever it is, it's
Well,
still an
we're
issue.
we're the select board. We represent the town, sir.
Correct. So these issues need to be addressed also. And if you want the place cleaned up, if you want the place lived in and looks like it's decent, that has to be resolved.
Yeah, I understand
It's
it.
been
It's
going on
just
for a long
separate.
time.
It's separate. to
I know it's
anything we
different.
have control over.
I will tell you this, the property is not going to go in any further disrepair. It
Okay,
is going to be repaired. I am going to continue working on it. And the sooner we are living there, the better. And the sooner we're there, the sooner it's cleaned up and it's done. It's awful hard to get up in the morning, 45 minutes away and drive and come back 4 hours
well, I
later.
appreciate that statement. Okay. I think we're done with your testimony. We thank you.
All right.
Thank everyone.
Well,
Your-
Mr. Chairman, may I make a brief statement and a couple of things that Mr. Van Slyke said? I need to be sworn in. Douglas McPhee.
One
Courtney's not done here.
1 second,
Oh,
Mr.
sorry.
McPhee.
Okay.
We have, the co-owner has one more statement. Is your microphone on, ma'am?
Your microphone's on.
I mean, I just want to say something, just the general effect, like,
I would like that.
because like he's not going to be around much longer, and we wanted to spend our last Christmas in the house, and we couldn't because of this shit. Like, I have my co-parent trying to fight me for my daughter because of this. I can't live there because the court ordered I can't live there because of the health order that was put on. I lost a loan of
Could you
$75,000.
live there with your child with no With no running
No,
water?
no, I mean, like, after that's resolved, but he's saying, like, because of the trash, because of the article in the Reformer, like,
sure.
all that other stuff, like.
Yep.
And then, like, there's that, and then there's just the overall fact, like, the article, like, people threatened to burn down our house. And there's, like, no repercussions for Chuck for doing that. And that's really frustrating.
Well, that's
I
something
think-
that, you don't know that. You don't know what.
I know, but
you
I'm
have
just
no
saying that
idea
that's-
what their decision's going to be.
but
You
there's
have
just
no idea
all-
whether there's going to be any reprimands.
I
There's
think
just
the
like-
frustration is abound here.
And then just
And we're
like,
trying to understand the process to take to solve this issue.
I
That's
understand
the
that.
bottom line.
But then it's
We're
like,
all human beings here.
like, I've had this conversation with Chuck multiple times. Like, the more you come and bother us and say nothing's getting done, we lose our motivation. Like, I'm the one footing the bill for this. I've been behind the whole thing. And
It's his job.
I
as
know,
the
but to
health
say nothing's
officer.
being done, like, I paid for 2 dumpsters to be taken out.
It's
Like,
not a personal.
I know, but
it's
I
not a
haven't worked
personal
because
attack on
I've
anything.
been, but it feels like that.
I understand that.
I think you're missing her point. Her point is that, and I've said this, every time we get there, there's an issue.
Okay.
Something comes up.
I
Every
understand.
time we're there. It gets really, really frustrating and obnoxious.
We hear you.
Like, I can't even be there alone anymore without someone accusing me of doing something.
We understand. I hear you. Thank you. Mr. McPhee, I do need to swear you in if you're ready.
I am.
Wait,
This is a contested hearing. It's not an open public meeting in the sense that it's open for public comment. If
I have information to what Mr. Van Soit said. I live on the same street. I walked by his property. He made several statements that I claim to be false.
So understood, but if the Van Schoik's case is concluded, then again, Mr. Wise has an opportunity for a case in rebuttal. So if he sees fit to call you as a witness in rebuttal, then that's up to him. But at this,
That's fine. That's fine. You don't live near this property, sir. And if you did, you would not be as calm as we are who live near this property. Thank you very much.
Okay, with that, we will. Would we like to move for deliberation? What would we like to do here?
don't we have to have a rebuttal opportunity for Chuck?
I've asked him, Susan. He had not one comment. I went around with the board, and now here we are. They're finished with their testimony. No
resting.
I'm sorry.
I was agreeing that we rest.
They rest. No rebuttal.
Well-
Board is done with questions.
I don't recall whether Chuck was asked if he wanted to present a case in rebuttal. I recall that he declined to cross-examine Mr. Van Schoik. But
You want to present a case to rebuttal, Chuck? He does not.
Okay.
We move to deliberation. Board needs to make that decision. Anyone?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we go to deliberation to decide this issue and do it at another meeting as the lateness of the evening is upon us.
We have a select board meeting we have to get through as we're in the middle of our budget season. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to move to deliberation at a different time. Any discussion?
Can I make can I just say we do this as soon as possible? This has been dragged out for everyone on all sides for a long time. I think the sooner we settle it, the better.
I think we could do it tomorrow, Susan, if it all works out. I think it's coming up on 9 o'clock. We started at 5:30 and we have a select board meeting.
No, that's
Where we have-
fine. I just said
I agree,
schedule it
yes.
now as soon as we can.
Absolutely. Motion been made, seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes. Thank you all very much.
We want to get a date so we can. they
So Shannon, if you could, send out an email or what works for
guys.
everyone as soon as possible. We could do it over Zoom or we could do it over phone calls. I'm not sure. We physically have to meet. I know 4 to 5 of us we'll see how it goes, but sooner the better, Shannon, if we can get started on that, or
I will do that.
like tonight, send us a couple times and we'll respond. How's that?
That's fine. We can also, if you'd like, move the select board meeting to follow your deliberative session. I'm not sure how.
Well, it's on the agenda, Peter had mentioned, so I don't know. I would absolutely be in favor of moving the select board meeting, but I don't know because it was warned. That's not my expertise. Peter would know.
There was nothing to make a motion on.
Correct. We did-
For this
we did-
agenda, it was informational only, so you could move it.
Yes, Cynthia, I think we're done. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Great job.
Well, thank
That's
you.
incredible work. I can't imagine.
Thank you very much.
600,000 words or something. So I don't know. What's the no action items, Shannon, right?
No, and to be fair, I did send home our highway foreman. He had been here and he's got an early morning, and I was hopeful that maybe he could be here to present to you. There is some information we wanted to share, so. it would
I
be-
also sent home the rec director as well.
So it would make sense if we would just reschedule. I think we can
Okay.
try to make it work for everyone, and we all
So
would be a
what
little
are we in
fresher.
right now? Do we need to close this meeting?
Yeah, we just did, so.
Okay.
All we have to do is set a date for the next meeting and.
Right.
And then we
Like,
do deliberate
warn
right
within
into it
24 hours or
immediately and
whatever.
no one,
So-
the only one I would suggest we have is the attorney and the manager, Chuck, and their witnesses there required to attend
Deliberation.
to the deliberate
And
session,
then the select board win.
whenever you want to do it.
Okay. So same thing with that, Shannon, then we need the 24 hours for that one to warn. Or can you,
Yeah, call it a special meeting. We're doing 24 hours.
I'll send some dates and times and please do not reply all, but respond to me with what works for you.
we will. Thank you.
Tomorrow's Wednesday. Everybody available or no?
We got fire training tomorrow night.
It won't
but-
be 24 hours. It'll be right now.
Right. No, yeah, I know. Okay, I was just throwing out.
I mean, Thursday evening, if you so choose, while you're all just sitting here, if that works.
We can make it happen.
Yeah.
I work till 7, but select board's way more important than earning money.
Monday, Monday is not going to be that much different from Thursday.
It's mostly budget, ratify one vote, right? I'm in favor of, Friday's our only other option, so let's get the health thing. That's priority. We could go into Monday or before the trustees meeting if we want, I don't know. Let's go into next week with the select board. Let's get on the,
So are you gonna not do the whole select board meeting tonight?
none of it.
None of it. Okay, so one thing I would suggest that we put on this agenda for the next one is the town meeting
Yep.
discussion, because we need to find out what the hell we're doing.
The
and
state.
What we need to do for the town report, the whole 9 yards. We gotta have some idea what's going on here. Town clerk needs us to get the ballots ready. If we're gonna do Australian ballot or whatever, we gotta decide what we're gonna do.
So
here.
we'll put that on the new agenda.
Can't hear you.
Didn't put my microphone on. So yeah, your consent forms are due by the 25th of January. Your warning needs to be finalized and to the clerk by the 28th of January. And the ballots need to be back from the printers and available for absentee voting by the 10th of February. That's if we're keeping our March date. So we could definitely talk about that either
Yeah,
Thursday or
just-
Monday.
Just so everybody knows where we're going. that's all.
Yes, 100%.
You gotta get the town report printed, so.
Okay, with that, we'll receive our email for health. And be in the next week for our select board meeting.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. Good night.